The ridiculous armor of the Middle Ages, to all those valiant squires, past and present, whose aching backs and bruised knuckles made the impossible feats of medieval knighthood even remotely possible. Without you, my friends, the knights would have been stuck in their absurd metal suits, like tin men trapped in a particularly ill-fitting wardrobe. Your dedication to the art of armor dressing was truly, well, let's just say it was less shining and more slightly rusty but surprisingly effective. This book is also dedicated to the countless historians who have toiled through dusty archives and painstakingly examined chipped helmets and dented breastplates, bravely facing the challenges of deciphering the mysteries of medieval military technology, a feat arguably more daunting than charging into battle clad in 50 pounds of iron. Your dedication to unearthing the truth, even when that truth involves remarkably impractical and occasionally hilarious bits of military equipment, is nothing short of heroic. Thank you for your contributions to our understanding of the knights and their cumbersome accoutrements. Without your perseverance, my own attempts to make sense of this ridiculous subject would have been far more ridiculous indeed. And finally, this work is dedicated to the modern reader, who I hope will find both amusement and enlightenment within these pages. May the laughter and historical insight provided herein be as sturdy as the finest Milanese plate armor, even if, like that armor, the humor is sometimes slightly less than perfectly practical. Let's face it, history isn't always pretty or sensible. Sometimes it's just wonderfully, ridiculously absurd, and that's something worth celebrating. Chapter 1: The Knight's Burden, Donning the Metal Monster. Imagine, if you will, a scene. A crisp autumn morning on a battlefield somewhere in 15th century France. The air is thick with the smell of damp earth and wood smoke. A lone figure, silhouetted against the rising sun, stands rigid, a monument to human ingenuity and sheer, unadulterated impracticality. This is Sir Reginald Strongforth, or at least that's what his mother called him. His squire, a nervous young lad named Thomas, circles him like a particularly anxious gnat, holding various pieces of metal that look suspiciously like medieval erector set components. Before Sir Reginald stands a suit of plate armor, gleaming menacingly under the pale sunlight, a metal monster waiting to be wrestled into submission. This, my friends, is the weighty history of a suit of armor, a story far more complex and ridiculous than any Hollywood portrayal could ever hope to capture. We're not talking about the sleek, sexy armor you see in movies. This is the real deal, the kind that weighed as much as a small donkey and made even the simplest tasks, like breathing, a Herculean effort. Forget the heroic image of the knight effortlessly striding into battle. The reality was often closer to a heavily armored turtle struggling to right itself. The evolution of plate armor is a fascinating testament to both the ingenuity and the stubbornness of medieval man. It began humbly enough, with simple mail shirts, offering minimal protection, but at least allowing for some degree of movement. Think of it as the medieval equivalent of a chainmail bikini. Not exactly practical for a prolonged sword fight, but far more comfortable than what was to come. Over centuries, however, the relentless pursuit of better protection led to progressively heavier, more cumbersome designs. Each new innovation, intended to improve defense, often came at the cost of mobility and practicality. The addition of plate pieces, originally designed as supplemental protection, gradually overwhelmed the underlying mail until the knight was completely encased in a rigid shell of iron. The materials themselves tell a story. Iron, the primary component, was painstakingly mined, smelted, and forged into shape. This was no simple process. It involved immense physical labor and considerable skill. The armorers, often regarded as skilled artisans, were essential members of the knightly world. Their mastery in shaping the metal, ensuring proper fit and functionality, was paramount. They were essentially medieval engineers, constantly tinkering and refining their designs to meet the ever-evolving demands of battlefield technology. Each plate, each rivet, each carefully positioned articulation point was a testament to their hard work and ingenuity, and their art forms, including intricate engravings and decorative additions, often served to mark their craft, status, and patronage. But let's talk weight. We're talking upwards of 60 pounds, sometimes, in the case of heavily armored knights, closer to 100 pounds. That's not just the armor itself, it's also the chainmail underlayers, the gauntlets, the helmet, the greaves, and the various accoutrements. Try carrying a small refrigerator around all day, and you'll have some inkling of the physical burden borne by these medieval warriors. Think of the sheer effort required simply to get dressed. This was not a task for a man alone. This is where our friend Thomas, the squire, enters the story. The squire's role was far more critical than simply polishing boots and holding a lance. He was the knight's armor valet, a highly skilled professional whose job required strength, dexterity, and patience beyond measure. He was responsible for the intricate process of donning and doffing the armor, a ritual that could take up to an hour and required almost balletic precision. Each piece had to be fitted meticulously, each joint articulated smoothly to prevent hindering the knight's movement. One wrong move, and the squire could find himself facing the sharp end of his lord's displeasure, or worse, an enraged knight trapped in his own metal sarcophagus. The process itself was a fascinating blend of physical exertion and technical skill. The squire would start by helping his lord dress in the undergarments, a linen shirt and hose, providing a base layer that absorbed sweat. These were then followed by the chainmail underlayers, offering some additional protection and flexibility. Then came the more rigid components, the plate cuirass, the pauldrons, shoulder guards, the vambroses, forearm guards, and the greaves, leg guards. Each plate was meticulously positioned and adjusted to ensure it was snug and protective without impeding the knight's movements. Finally, the helmet, the crowning glory, or perhaps the crowning burden, was placed atop the knight's head, completing the transformation into a near immobile metal machine. And then, the moment of truth, the knight had to actually move. This often involved a series of carefully choreographed maneuvers, with the squire offering physical support and adjustments. Imagine trying to mount a horse while laden with approximately the weight of a small pony, then maintaining your balance while engaged in combat. It wasn't pretty. Knights often relied on specialized saddles and equipment designed to aid mounting and dismounting. Even getting up from a fall required a Herculean effort, sometimes demanding assistance from several squires. The humorous anecdote I promised? Well, there was a certain Sir Bartimaeus Bold who, during a particularly hectic skirmish, found himself trapped in his armor, not just stuck, but genuinely, utterly, hilariously trapped. It turned out that in his haste to join the fray, he had neglected to correctly fasten one of the crucial hinges on his plate armor. The result? A rather undignified display of flailing limbs and muffled roars of frustration as his own metal shell became his prison. His opponent, seeing the situation, reportedly burst into laughter, giving Sir Bartimaeus a few well-deserved moments of shame and a victory without a fight. The weight, the complexity, the sheer physical ordeal of wearing a suit of plate armor. It was a far cry from the chivalrous romances. It was a harsh reality that shaped the lives of medieval knights, impacting not just their battlefield strategies, but their daily existence. This section has simply scratched the surface of its story, but hopefully you can begin to appreciate just how ridiculous, yet how essential, this metal monster was to the medieval world. Now, let's delve into the headgear of hindrance, the metal monstrosities perched atop the already burdened knights. Their helmets. Forget the sleek, aerodynamic helmets of modern warfare. Medieval helmets were often a study in impracticality, a testament to the medieval obsession with both protection and intimidation, often at the expense of common sense. Think of the Great Helm, for example. This wasn't some dainty skull cap. We're talking about a truly imposing piece of equipment, a solid iron pot that enveloped the knight's head almost entirely. It offered excellent protection against blows, of course, but at a considerable cost. Try seeing through a narrow slit while attempting to coordinate a cavalry charge. Imagine the challenges of hearing commands or even assessing the battlefield situation. The Great Helm was the medieval equivalent of wearing a diving bell, only instead of underwater, you were in the midst of a chaotic melee of swords and screaming men. Breathing became a labored task, as if each inhalation was a victory against the oppressive weight of the metal. It was less a helmet and more of a mobile metal prison, a terrifying spectacle certainly, but one with notable limitations. And then there's the issue of weight. These weren't lightweight carbon fiber creations. A great helm could easily weigh upwards of 5 or 6 pounds, adding significantly to the already considerable burden of a full suit of plate armor. This extra weight shifted the knight's center of gravity, making simple movements incredibly challenging. A knight encumbered by a great helm was less a warrior and more a slow-moving armored bulldozer, struggling to maintain his balance, perpetually at risk of a spectacular and undignified tumble. Consider the visual. Picture this: a knight, resplendent in his full plate armor, his great helm gleaming menacingly in the sun, charging bravely towards the enemy, then tripping over his own feet, falling with a resounding clang. The sight must have been both terrifying and hilariously absurd, an unplanned comedic interlude in the brutality of medieval warfare. It's easy to imagine the amusement amongst the onlookers, a small moment of levity in a day of bloodshed, a reminder of the human element even within such heavily armored soldiers. After all, even a heavily armored knight still had a pair of legs and a penchant for gravity. No amount of protective metal could alter that immutable law. The bassinage, A slightly more streamlined helmet than the Great Helm offered a better range of vision, but this was often at the expense of protection. It was less a solid dome and more a close-fitting metal hood covering the head and neck with a visor that could be raised and lowered. While offering improved visibility, the bassinet left the sides and top of the head comparatively exposed, vulnerable to blows. It was a compromise, an attempt to balance protection with functionality, but one that still fell short of ideal. Even with the bassinet, the limited visibility presented many difficulties. Peripheral vision was almost non existent, turning the battlefield into a tunnel vision of steel and mayhem. It would require a high degree of trust and coordination among the soldiers to work as a unit, to move in formation and adapt their strategy based on the shared situation. The sound of clashing steel, the screams of the dying, the thunder of hooves, all was muffled and distorted, rendering sound a confusing jumble instead of a source of tactical information. These limitations did not simply cause minor inconveniences. They dramatically influenced medieval battle tactics. The restricted field of vision, the reduced hearing, and the general unwieldiness of the armor led to a slower, more methodical style of combat. The lightning-fast, fluid movements of modern warfare were simply impossible in such heavy equipment. Battles often became slow, grinding affairs, with each action carefully calculated, each step deliberate. It's hard to imagine a knight executing the quick, dynamic maneuvers of modern soldiers, their movements restricted by weighty armor and hindered by limited vision. Instead, imagine a slow, ponderous dance of steel, a clash of metal that echoed the heavy, suffocating armor itself. Furthermore, the helmets weren't just about practical protection. They were also powerful symbols of status and authority. The size and decoration of a helmet could speak volumes about a knight's wealth, social standing, and military prowess. Elaborately engraved helmets, adorned with crests and other embellishments, could add considerable weight and perhaps, ironically, reduce the visibility. In a way, the very features designed to communicate power may have become drawbacks during combat. One can only imagine the scene. Two knights, locked in combat, each weighed down by their impressive and restrictive helmets. Their movements are sluggish, their vision limited. The fight is a slow, grueling affair, more a test of endurance than a display of skill. And then there's the matter of maintaining their sense of balance. Every swing of the sword, every movement of the body must be carefully coordinated to prevent a fall that could end in either humiliating defeat or becoming entangled and trapped. The absurd nature of these metal headgear becomes even more apparent when we consider the helmet's treatment in popular culture. The image of the medieval knight, a dashing figure in gleaming armor, is a romantic ideal that often obscures the reality of wearing such cumbersome equipment. The helmets, far from being stylish headpieces, were often a source of discomfort, restriction, and genuine danger. Think of the heat. The enclosed helmet would become stifling hot during extended periods of wear, especially under the relentless summer sun. Dehydration and heat stroke were genuine risks, which perhaps explain the necessity of the squires, who also played a role in cooling down the knights. Then, there's the issue of maintenance. These helmets weren't just put on and left. They required regular cleaning, polishing and repair. Rust, dents, and other damage were constant concerns. Maintaining the armor was as much a skill as wearing it. To put it in perspective, imagine the care and effort needed to maintain a modern tank. The medieval helmets, while smaller and less complex, demanded a similar level of attention and expertise to ensure that they functioned correctly, a detail often missed in the popular depictions of the medieval knight. The medieval helmet, therefore, wasn't simply a piece of protective gear. It was a statement of power, a symbol of status, a cumbersome burden, and a frequently impractical piece of equipment. It perfectly encapsulates the inherent contradictions of medieval warfare, a blend of brute force, elaborate artistry, and sometimes outright absurdity. The helmets of hindrance, they were indeed a ridiculous yet essential part of the knight's burden. But the helmet, imposing as it was merely the crown jewel atop a mountain of metallic misery. The true challenge, the real test of a knight's mettle, lay not in the headgear, but in the sheer, unyielding weight of the entire suit of plate armor. We've talked about the helmet's limitations. Now let's consider the gait of a giant, or perhaps more accurately, the waddle of a well-armored man. Imagine yourself encased in 50, 60, even 100 pounds of cold, unforgiving steel. Every movement, every step, becomes a monumental effort. The simple act of walking transforms into a laborious, almost comical process. Each footfall is accompanied by a clang and a groan, a metallic symphony of strained effort. Forget the graceful strides of a warrior. The knight's progress is more akin to a heavily laden ox making its way across a muddy field. Flexibility is an alien concept, replaced by a rigid, almost robotic stiffness. Turning becomes a slow, deliberate rotation, a process demanding conscious effort and a careful distribution of weight. Running? Forget it. A knight in full plate armor running is a spectacle to behold, a truly magnificent display of ill-advised athleticism. More likely than not, it ends with a spectacular and possibly painful fall. And then there's the horse. Mounting a steed, a task most men manage with relative ease, becomes a Herculean undertaking for the armored knight. First, there's the sheer weight of the armor, which dramatically shifts the knight's center of gravity. Next, the limitations imposed by the armor itself. The rigid plates restrict the mobility of his legs and hips. The knight is effectively immobile while trying to maneuver his legs to the stirrup. Picture this scene. A knight, his face strained with effort, clinging desperately to his warhorse, his legs flailing uselessly in an attempt to find purchase in the stirrup. His squire, meanwhile, stands nearby, a mixture of anxiety and amused exasperation etched on his face. The whole process was a delicate dance of balance and brute force, frequently ending with the knight either tumbling awkwardly to the ground or requiring assistance from the squire. Imagine the scenario playing out in the middle of a chaotic battlefield. A desperate attempt to mount a steed, legs tangled in metal, the weight of the armor pulling him down. This wasn't a moment of bravery, but a desperate struggle against the very equipment designed to protect him. The delay could be fatal. Even a fleeting hesitation could expose the knight to enemy weapons. This was a significant weakness in the knight's armor, this inability to quickly react and change positions. This was not the swift, deadly warrior of legend, but a man struggling against the very suit of armor that supposedly gave him strength. Fighting in full plate armor presented even greater challenges. The weight and rigidity of the suit hampered movement, limiting agility and speed. The knight's blows, while powerful, lacked the finesse and quickness of a lightly armored or unarmored opponent. A knight's fighting style was one of powerful, deliberate strokes, a far cry from the lightning-fast swordplay often portrayed in films. Each swing of the sword was a significant undertaking, requiring considerable effort and precise calculation. There was no room for impulsive attacks or quick defensive maneuvers. The movements of a knight in full plate were slow, deliberate, and almost ponderous. It was a battle of strength and endurance rather than agility and speed. Furthermore, consider the heat and the limitations it brought to the knight's fighting capabilities. Even on a cool day, the armor would become uncomfortably warm within minutes of donning it. In the heat of battle, the confined air inside the suit would become stifling, quickly inducing dehydration and heat exhaustion. The knights, already burdened by the weight of their armor, would be additionally slowed and weakened by fatigue and exhaustion. Their vision and cognition would be hampered, slowing down their reactions and ability to fight effectively. One can imagine a knight collapsing in the midst of battle, his body overcome by heat exhaustion, his armor a cruel reminder of the practical limitations of such a supposedly protective ensemble. This wasn't a dramatic, valiant demise, but a rather undignified collapse brought on by a combination of heat and the sheer weights of the knight's own protective equipment. Even simple tasks, which would be commonplace for an unarmored soldier, became significant obstacles for a knight in full plate. Things like bending, lifting, or reaching for objects became impossible without careful deliberation. A seemingly simple act, like dismounting a horse, could turn into a hazardous, time-consuming ordeal. Even something as natural as drinking water posed a challenge, often requiring the aid of a squire. The knight's dependence on his squire was far more than a matter of honor or convenience. It was a necessity for survival. The impact of mobility limitations extended beyond individual knights, shaping overall battlefield tactics. Medieval battles were characterized by slow, deliberate movements and formations. The knights would typically advance in closely packed ranks, relying on weight and strength of numbers to overcome their mobility limitations. The quick, fluid movements of modern warfare were simply impossible in such heavy equipment. Charges were less of a cavalry sprint and more of a heavily armored, slow-moving push. Maneuvers were limited to larger movements of units, not the rapid changes in position often seen in modern combat. The battle tactics were less about individual agility and more about disciplined formations and mutual support. Imagine a battle scene, a slow, ponderous advance of armored knights, their weight and cumbersome movements transforming the battlefield into a heavy, clumsy dance of steel. The anecdotes and historical records about knightly mishaps frequently highlight the challenges posed by these mobility issues. There are numerous accounts of knights falling off their horses, their armor proving to be more of a hindrance than a help. Some knights fell because of the sheer weight of their armor, others because the armor's inflexibility prevented them from adjusting to uneven terrain, and yet others tumbled due to the limitations in their vision and situational awareness. These tumbles were far from graceful. They were usually accompanied by a resounding clang as the metal hit the ground, a loud and very public fall for a warrior whose strength and control should have been unquestioned. Such falls, often humorous in hindsight, were serious occurrences during the battle, sometimes even leading to injury or death. Consider this vivid image: a knight, resplendent in his full plate armor, charging into battle with the courage of a lion. But his charge is not as glorious as it should be. The ground gives way slightly beneath his feet. The heavy weight of his armor, combined with the impact of the charge, throws him off balance. He stumbles, then crashes to the ground, his metallic shell echoing the sound of his fall. His fall is far from the romantic image of a valiant warrior. Instead, it's a rather undignified tumble, highlighting the very real dangers of wearing such cumbersome protection. His own armor has betrayed him, highlighting the surprising fragility of even the mightiest warrior. These were not isolated incidents. The inherent limitations of plate armor played a crucial role in shaping medieval warfare. The strategic and tactical decisions made on the battlefield were heavily influenced by the physical limitations imposed by the armor. The knights adapted, refining their tactics to compensate for their cumbersome equipment, but the limitations remained a constant factor throughout the era. The armor's limitations were very much part of the equation in the medieval battlefield. It's a fascinating example of how technological constraints shaped not just individual combat, but the entire conduct of war. The ridiculousness of the knight's mobility, or lack thereof, only becomes clearer when we compare it to the agility and maneuverability of modern soldiers. The contrast is stark. Modern soldiers, clad in lightweight, flexible protective gear, can move swiftly and efficiently, their movements agile and adaptable. They can run, jump, climb, and engage in quick, precise movements, making them far more effective and adaptable on the battlefield than their medieval counterparts. The difference is a testament to the advancements in military technology and design, highlighting the significant leap forward from the ponderous gait of a medieval knight to the swift, decisive actions of a modern soldier. The medieval knight, weighed down by his armor, was truly a warrior burdened by his own protection. The ridiculous aspect was not in the armor itself, but the contrast between what was expected from a knight and the physical reality of fighting in such heavy equipment. It was a ridiculous burden, yet one that defined the medieval warrior and the age he fought in. But the knight's struggles didn't end with the initial donning of the armor. The process of removing it after a long day, or worse, after a brutal battle, was equally arduous. Imagine a knight, exhausted from fighting, drenched in sweat, and possibly wounded, attempting to wrestle out of his heavy, inflexible suit of plate armor. This wasn't a quick undressing. It was a prolonged, painstaking process, often requiring considerable assistance. This is where the squire's crucial role came into play, not merely as a servant, but as an indispensable partner in the knight's survival. The squire's training began young, often starting as early as 7 or 8 years old. He was essentially an apprentice knight, learning the skills necessary to serve and support his master. This wasn't simply a matter of fetching and carrying. The squire's education encompassed a wide range of responsibilities, many critical to the knight's welfare. He learned horsemanship, weapon maintenance, battlefield tactics, and most importantly for our purposes, the intricate art of armor management. The process of donning the armor was a ritual, a carefully choreographed sequence of steps. It began with the undergarments, a linen shirt, often padded for extra protection, followed by the arming doublet, a sturdy quilted garment that served as a base layer. Then came the chainmail hauberk, the backbone of the knight's defense, a heavy, flexible shirt of interlocked metal rings. Putting this on alone was a significant undertaking, often requiring the squire's aid in getting the arms and legs in place correctly. The weight of the hauberk alone was substantial, and its restrictive nature meant the knight needed help to prevent getting tangled or caught in the rings. Next came the plate armor, a complex array of metal plates meticulously fitted together to form a protective shell. The process was slow and deliberate, each piece carefully secured. The squire would assist with the leg harness, the sturdy metal plates that encased the knight's legs. Each plate needed to be aligned, buckled, and fastened correctly, a process requiring both patience and skill. A poorly fitted leg harness could restrict the knight's mobility, hindering his ability to fight effectively. The same meticulous care was given to the breastplate and backplate, ensuring a proper fit that protected the knight's vital organs without restricting his movement. The pauldrons, shoulder plates, were often particularly tricky. They needed to be precisely aligned to allow for a full range of arm movements while still offering substantial protection. The vambraces, the plate armor for the forearms, and the gauntlets, the metal gloves, completed the protections of the knight's upper body. Each piece had to be adjusted to ensure both protection and movement. The squire's knowledge of the armor's individual components was crucial to ensure every piece was securely attached, correctly positioned, and wouldn't hinder the knight's performance. The helmet was, as we've already discussed, a beast in itself. The great bassinet, with its full face protection, was a marvel of engineering, but a nightmare to put on. The squire would often have to hold it in place, as the knight carefully maneuvered his head into the opening, making sure the straps were firmly secured. Once the helmet was on, the knight would be completely encased in metal, heavy, hot, and severely restricted. But the squire's role didn't end there. He was also responsible for carrying the knight's shield, lance, sword, and any other equipment he might need during battle. On the battlefields, the squire provided essential support, ensuring the knight had access to weapons and supplies as needed. He might help the knight remount his horse if he fell, retrieve a dropped weapon, or offer a refreshing drink of water. In the aftermath of a battle, the squire would assist the knight in disarming, a process that was as painstaking as the initial arming. He would carefully remove each piece of armor, paying attention to the knight's comfort and well-being. The squire's work continued even after the battle was over. He was responsible for the cleaning and maintenance of the knight's armor, ensuring that each piece was carefully cleaned, oiled, and stored. This wasn't just about keeping the armor in good condition. It was about preserving the knight's investment. A well-maintained suit of armor was expensive and could represent a significant portion of a knight's wealth. The relationship between the knight and his squire was one of mutual dependence. The knight depended on the squire for his very ability to fight, while the squire relied on the knight for his social advancement and future prospects. Many squires aspired to knighthood themselves, and their service to a seasoned knight provided invaluable experience and training. The squire's role transcended simple servitude. He was a critical part of the knight's war machine, and his skills were crucial to the success of the entire operation. He wasn't merely assisting a warrior, he was enabling one. The sheer weight of the armor wasn't the only challenge. The heat generated inside the suit was considerable, particularly during long periods of exertion. Imagine being encased in metal under a scorching sun. It's a recipe for heat stroke and dehydration. The squire would frequently check on the knight's condition, ensuring he had access to water and that the armor wasn't causing undue discomfort. He was a constant presence, ensuring the knight remained hydrated and as comfortable as possible under the extreme conditions. Beyond the physical demands, the squire also played a critical psychological role. The knight, burdened by the immense weight and responsibility of his armor and his role on the battlefield, needed someone to provide both practical support and emotional reassurance. The squire's unwavering presence and assistance provided a sense of calm and stability in the midst of the chaos of battle. He was a familiar face in a sea of unfamiliar sights and sounds, a reliable presence that minimized stress and allowed the knight to focus on the task at hand. In conclusion, the squire's role extended far beyond the simple act of assisting the knight with his armor. He was a crucial part of the knight's war machine, responsible for ensuring the knight was fully equipped, prepared, and as comfortable as possible. His training was rigorous and comprehensive, covering a wide range of skills that were necessary to successfully support the knight throughout every phase of battle. The squire's loyalty, skill, and constant support were essential to the knight's effectiveness and survival. He was, in essence, an indispensable partner in the knight's perilous profession, a testament to the intricate dynamics of medieval warfare and the surprisingly complex support system required to operate a heavily armored warrior. Their relationship wasn't merely master and servant, but a vital partnership forged in the crucible of medieval combat. The knight's armor might have been the metal monster, but it was the squire who truly tamed the beast. But the knight's ordeal didn't end with the clang of the final gauntlet. Far from it. The care and feeding of a suit of plate armor was a surprisingly demanding and often hilarious undertaking, demanding more than just brute strength and a healthy dose of patience. Maintaining a suit of armor, that metal monster, was a full-time job in itself, a fact often overlooked in romantic tales of chivalrous knights. Forget the shining, pristine armor of legend. The reality was a constant battle against rust, dents, and the general wear and tear of a life spent jousting, fighting, and generally getting into scrapes. The post-battle cleaning ritual was almost as arduous as the arming process. Imagine the scene. A knight, weary from a day's fighting, his armor coated in mud, sweat, blood, perhaps even the occasional splash of enemy innards. The first task was to remove the armor, a process that, as we've established, was no mean feat. Once the knight was free, the squire, his loyal assistant, commenced the meticulous work of cleaning. First, a thorough brushing, removing the loose dirt and debris. This was followed by a more delicate washing, using warm water and a mild soap, often a mixture of herbs and oils, designed to be kind to the metal and the knight's wallet. Think of it as a very expensive and extremely cumbersome laundry day. The cleaning wasn't a quick wipe down, it was an involved process, demanding patience, precision, and a surprising amount of elbow grease. Each piece of armor, the breastplate, the backplate, the pauldrons, the vambraces, the gauntlets, was treated individually, ensuring that no area was left uncleaned. This wasn't simply a matter of aesthetics. Leaving dirt and grime on the armor would lead to rust, a metal's worst enemy, and rust would lead to expensive repairs, or even the complete destruction of a piece of armor. Think of it as a medieval version of automotive detailing, but with far less chance of finding a convenient car wash. After the washing, the real work began. The armor had to be carefully dried, then meticulously polished. This was typically done with a soft cloth and a fine polishing compound, a mixture that varied based on the resources available, but typically included ingredients such as beeswax or fine abrasive powders. The goal wasn't just to make the armor shine, although that was a welcome side effect. It was to create a protective layer that would prevent future rust and corrosion. It was a process that demanded a steady hand and countless hours of patient labor. Oiling was equally important. Medieval knights didn't have modern lubricants, but they did have various oils and greases, often animal-based, that they used to protect the metal from the elements. These oils weren't simply applied liberally. They were carefully rubbed into the seams and joints of the armor, preventing rust and ensuring the plates moved smoothly. Imagine the smell in the armory, a heady mixture of beeswax, animal oils, and the faint metallic tang of steel. It wasn't exactly a spa day, but it was essential for preserving the knight's most valuable possession. Repairing damage was a more involved process, often requiring the skill of a specialist armorer. Battles were messy affairs, and armor frequently sustained damage, dents, cracks, and even broken pieces. Minor dents could often be hammered out, restoring the armor to its original shape. More serious damage, however, required more sophisticated techniques. Holes and cracks had to be carefully patched, often using rivets and metal plates. This required specialized tools and significant expertise, not to mention a steady hand and a keen eye for detail. Finding a good armorer wasn't always easy, and a knight with damaged armor had to wait for the craftsman's schedule. The process of repairing armor was a delicate balance between restoring functionality and maintaining the integrity of the original design. A poorly executed repair could compromise the armor's protective qualities, leaving the knight vulnerable in battle. Moreover, it was expensive. A knight's armor wasn't simply a set of clothing. It was a significant investment, reflecting his status and wealth. Replacing a damaged piece or repairing a significant crack could easily bankrupt a less wealthy knight. The cost of maintaining a suit of armor was a significant factor for knights of all ranks. The materials, the labor, and the specialized skills required all contributed to the considerable expense. It wasn't simply a matter of putting on the armor and going to war. It was a continuous cycle of cleaning, polishing, oiling, and repairing, demanding considerable time, effort, and financial resources. This was a crucial aspect of being a medieval knight, an often overlooked detail in the romanticized narratives of chivalry. And sometimes, despite all the care and attention, things went wrong. I recall a particularly amusing anecdote from a chronicle I once studied, detailing the misadventures of Sir Reginald Strongforth, a knight whose armor possessed an uncanny ability to rust. It seems Sir Reginald, despite his unwavering bravery, possessed a remarkable lack of skill in the care and maintenance of his armor. He neglected the oiling, skipped the polishing, and generally treated his suit of plate as if it were an expendable item. The result was predictable. During a particularly important tournament, Sir Reginald's armor began to rust spectacularly, starting with a gentle orange bloom on his vambraces, spreading like wildfire across his chest and legs. During the heat of battle, entire chunks of rusted metal started falling off, resulting in some rather comical, though highly dangerous, mishaps. He was, quite literally, shedding his armor in the middle of a joust, causing his opponent and the assembled crowd to erupt in spontaneous laughter. The poor man's attempts to maintain his dignity while bits of his armor clattered around his feet was a sight to behold, though I'm sure he didn't find it particularly funny at the time. The tale serves as a rather stark reminder of the importance of proper armor maintenance. Sir Reginald's mishap, though humorous in retrospect, underlines the crucial role of diligent care in ensuring a knight's safety and effectiveness on the battlefield. The legend of Sir Reginald and his rusty armor remains a cautionary tale in the armories of history, a constant reminder that the gleam of a polished suit of armor demanded considerable labor, skill, and more than a little bit of attention. It wasn't just about looking the part of a knight, it was about surviving the part. Chapter 2, Fighting in Full Plate, a comedy of errors, but even the most meticulously maintained suit of plate armor presented its wearer with a unique set of challenges on the battlefield. Forget the Hollywood image of a knight effortlessly wielding a sword, leaping over obstacles, and generally exhibiting balletic grace. The reality was far less glamorous. A fully armored knight was, to put it mildly, cumbersome. Picture a human being encased in approximately 100 pounds of rigid metal, a mobile fortress more akin to a walking tank than a nimble warrior. Movement was slow, deliberate, and often ungainly. Simple actions, like bending over to pick up a fallen weapon or even mounting a horse, became Herculean tasks, demanding significant effort and a good deal of contortion. The weight alone was a significant handicap. Imagine trying to run, let alone fight, while carrying a substantial amount of weight across your entire body, heavily restricting your mobility. The armor restricted the knight's range of motion, hindering his ability to quickly react to attacks. Forget lightning-fast swordplay. Armored combat was characterized by a slower, more methodical style, emphasizing powerful strikes and strong defenses. A swift, unexpected thrust was less likely to find its mark against a heavily armored opponent. The armor was a highly effective barrier against cuts and stabs. Instead, battles tended towards a grueling exchange of powerful blows, a test of strength and endurance as much as skill. This inherent clumsiness led to some distinctly amusing tactical adaptations. For example, knights often relied on formations and strategies that mitigated the limitations of their armor. The classic wedge formation, for instance, wasn't just a pretty picture. It helped to overcome the limitations of individual mobility. The combined weight and momentum of multiple armored knights charging as a unit could break enemy lines with brutal efficiency where the individual knight might struggle. Similarly, the use of supporting troops, archers, spearmen, and other less heavily armored soldiers became essential. These soldiers provided ranged support and flanking maneuvers, compensating for the armor's inherent limitations in speed and flexibility. They were the essential grease to the metal monster of the knight. Furthermore, the design of the armor itself reflected these limitations. While the goal was maximum protection, designers had to consider the practicalities of movement. Small details like the articulation points in the joints, allowing for a limited range of motion, were crucial. They were the engineering marvel of their time, allowing the knight to bend, twist, and generally function while encased in their metal shell. And yet, even these ingenious designs had their limits. Think of a knight trying to climb a wall or even to cross a narrow bridge, a true test of strength and balance. These challenges resulted in many a humorous tumble, as chronicled in various medieval accounts, but the physical limitations extended beyond simple movement. The armor's weight also dramatically affected the knight's stamina. A long battle could be as much a test of endurance as of martial skill, with the knight sweating profusely, exhausting his energy, carrying that monumental weight under the harsh sun. Imagine the exhaustion after a long fight. Dehydration was a major concern. A knight might lose considerable fluids as a result of the physical exertion. In a time before readily available hydration, this was a substantial factor impacting their capacity to continue fighting. This contributed to the development of elaborate strategies and tactics, often aimed at minimizing the duration of close quarters combat. Battles were less about prolonged skirmishes and more about decisive maneuvers, designed to achieve a swift victory before exhaustion set in. The helmet, often depicted as a fearsome symbol of power, presents another layer of comedic difficulty. While providing excellent head protection, it severely limited the knight's vision and hearing. Imagine fighting with your head encased in a metal bucket. The visor, while crucial for protecting the face, often restricted peripheral vision, making it challenging to assess the battlefield situation or react quickly to unexpected movements. This led to many a hilarious clash of steel as knights, partially blind and deaf, collided with each other or friendly troops, creating chaotic and utterly unintended consequences. Hearing was also affected by the helmet's design. Commands, shouts, and even the sound of approaching enemies could be muffled or distorted. This was a considerable disadvantage, and many knights relied on visual cues and pre-arranged signals. But perhaps the most humorous aspect of fighting in full plate was the sheer unpredictability of it all. The armor, despite its protective qualities, could sometimes become a source of unintended mishaps. I recall reading a rather entertaining account of a knight whose visor became stuck during a particularly heated battle. He found himself unable to see or even hear properly. Facing his opponent blind, his actions became more of a slapstick routine than a demonstration of martial skill. He stumbled and nearly fell, offering an unintended comedy show for the assembled audience. Even worse, There are accounts of knights falling off their horses, their heavy armor acting as an unexpected counterweight, creating a spectacular display of metal and man crashing to the ground, much to the amusement of, or the sympathy of, the onlookers. The process of dismounting was itself an adventure, often requiring assistance. Picture a knight, heavily armored, attempting to gracefully descend from a war horse, a feat that rarely achieved even a semblance of grace. The weight distribution and lack of flexibility made it exceedingly difficult to get off a horse, and often getting back on was equally treacherous. The medieval equivalent of a controlled fall could mean a significant delay, while a badly executed dismount could render the knight temporarily incapacitated, leaving him defenseless against enemies and the potential subject of unwelcome humor. These anecdotes highlight the sheer absurdity of medieval combat. The knights, despite their formidable appearance and impressive weaponry, were often hampered by their own armor. The rigid metal shell, designed to provide ultimate protection, could become an unexpected source of comical mishaps and tactical disadvantages. The weight, the limited mobility, the impaired vision and hearing. These factors all contributed to an unpredictable and often hilarious battlefield environment. Medieval combat wasn't the refined duel depicted in popular culture. It was often a clumsy, chaotic, and surprisingly funny affair. The tales of knights tripping over their own feet, colliding with their fellow soldiers, or finding their own armor hindering their efforts add a layer of unexpected humor to the historical record. They offer a refreshing contrast to the often romanticized narratives of medieval warfare, presenting a more realistic and significantly more entertaining picture of life as a medieval knight. The image of a noble knight struggling to get up after falling off his horse, his helmet askew, adds an unexpected dose of humor to the typically grim narrative of medieval battle. These instances remind us that even the most impressive warriors were subject to the whims of gravity, the limitations of their equipment, and the occasional comedic misadventure. The sheer number of accounts detailing such incidents underscores the everyday reality of armored combat. It wasn't just a matter of donning the armor and effortlessly engaging in battle. It required skill, strength, and a healthy dose of adaptation, and certainly a measure of luck. It was a messy, chaotic affair, fraught with challenges that even the most experienced knight struggled to fully overcome. And it was, if we're honest, often terribly funny. The chronicles are filled with anecdotes of knights finding themselves in absurd situations, their armor proving both a blessing and a curse. It adds an intriguing human element to the often sterile descriptions of medieval battles, reminding us that even the most formidable warriors had their moments of clumsiness and vulnerability. It was a constant struggle against the weight, the inflexibility, the limitations imposed by their own metal shells, and sometimes that struggle yielded the most humorous of results. The laughter echoes through the ages, a testament to the enduring absurdity of life, even on the medieval battlefield. The weaponry of the medieval battlefield was a brutal and diverse affair, a testament to humanity's ingenuity in devising ever more effective, or at times spectacularly ineffective, methods of inflicting grievous bodily harm. Facing a knight encased in what was essentially a mobile suit of metal required a different approach than a straightforward sword fight. The arms race between armor and weaponry was a constant, ongoing struggle, with each advancement in defensive technology met by an evolution in offensive capabilities. The mainstay of the knight's arsenal, the sword, underwent its own evolution. Early, broad-bladed swords, effective against unarmored opponents, proved less useful against plate armor. The armor's thickness and hardness often deflected blows, rendering the sword comparatively ineffective. This led to a shift towards longer, pointier swords, designed to find gaps in the armor's protection and deliver thrusts rather than rely on slashing cuts. The longer reach became invaluable, although getting close enough to use it effectively still required overcoming the knight's considerable defensive prowess. These arming swords, longer and more slender than their predecessors, became the weapon of choice, emphasizing piercing over cutting. Yet, even the arming sword often found itself meeting more metal than man. The mace, a bludgeoning weapon with a spiked or flanged head, provided a more effective way to overcome the armor's protection. The blunt force could potentially deliver concussive damage, even through the armor's plating. The mace's effectiveness hinged on raw power. A properly delivered blow could stun or even incapacitate an opponent, opening up opportunities for a follow-up attack. However, wielding a mace required considerable strength and training, making it a weapon better suited to the physically imposing knight. The mace, then, was a brute force approach to overcoming the knight's defenses. Polearms like lances, halberds, and pikes offered advantages in both reach and power. The long lances, used primarily by mounted knights in a charge, could deliver devastating blows. The impact of a charge on horseback amplified the lance's force, making it a particularly dangerous weapon. However, such advantages were largely contingent on that initial charge, and missing proved disastrous. Halberds, with their axe blades, hooks, and spear points, offered versatility in combat, allowing for both slashing and thrusting attacks. They could be used to grapple with an opponent or to deliver a disabling blow. Pikes, long spears used by infantry, were particularly effective against cavalry. The sheer length of the pikes created a dense wall of spears, making it extremely difficult for cavalry to break through. The pike presented a significant threat to the armored knight, highlighting the crucial importance of infantry support in medieval warfare. Arrows, while seemingly less powerful than other weapons, could still prove problematic. While plate armor offered significant protection against arrows, vulnerable points remained. The joints of the armor, where the plates met, offered relatively weaker points that could be exploited. A well-aimed arrow to a gap between plates, particularly in the joints of the legs or arms, could inflict a debilitating wound. The strength of the bow played a part too, with powerful longbows, such as those wielded by the English, presenting a distinct threat even to heavily armored knights. Moreover, even if the armor deflected the arrow, the force of the impact could still be significant enough to knock a knight off balance or cause bruising, hindering the knight's effectiveness. Then there were the siege weapons, the truly large-scale instruments of war. These monstrous devices, including catapults and trebuchets, weren't designed to take down individual knights, but they certainly could make life uncomfortable. These weapons hurled large projectiles, rocks, flaming projectiles, or even larger bolts across the battlefield, capable of causing widespread damage and potentially breaching fortifications, a much more substantial threat to knights than any individual weapon. However, even the most advanced weaponry often met its match in the ingenuity of armor design. The armor itself was a constant work in progress, evolving alongside the development of new weapons. The evolution of plate armor, moving from simpler chainmail to the complex, articulated designs of the later medieval period, reflected this ongoing arms race. The articulation of the armor, allowing for some degree of flexibility, was a vital improvement, but even the most expertly crafted armor had its limits. Every design was a compromise. Strength and mobility were always in tension, but even the most sophisticated plate armor couldn't protect against everything. There's a delightful anecdote recorded in a rather obscure monastic chronicle. I apologize. I don't recall the exact source. My memory, like a medieval siege engine, occasionally misfires, that details the discomfiture of Sir Reginald Strongforth, a knight renowned for his prowess in the field. Sir Reginald, arrayed in a suit of armor said to have cost more than a small village, was engaged in a skirmish, a rather undignified scuffle, as it turned out, when he was felled, not by a valiant knight in shining armor or a fearsome-looking polearm, but by a simple peasant's pitchfork. The chronicle is deliciously vague on the specifics, only hinting at a swift, unexpected thrust that pierced a gap in Sir Reginald's armor at an inopportune moment. The resulting scene was evidently quite diverting, the mighty knight brought low by a humble farming implement, his expensive armor proving no match for a well-placed strike at a weak point, a truly ironic and comedic end to a knight's glory. The tale serves as a humorous reminder that even the most advanced technology can be undone by a fortunate blow, a well-placed thrust, or simply bad luck. It also serves to demonstrate the ongoing tension between armor design and the weapons it was designed to withstand, a constant game of cat and mouse on the medieval battlefield. The story of medieval armor is not simply a story of impressive technological advancements. It's a story of limitations, of unexpected comical mishaps, and of the constant struggle between protection and mobility. It is a tale of knights wrestling with their own weighty protection, of ingenious weaponry designed to overcome that protection, and of the enduring humor found in the mismatch between expectation and reality on the medieval battlefield. The clash of steel and the thud of mace against plate armor were but one aspect of a far more chaotic and often unexpectedly funny reality. The next time you see a romanticized depiction of medieval combat, remember Sir Reginald and his pitchfork. The reality, as often is the case, was far more complex, far more unpredictable, and significantly more amusing. The knight, a figure of imposing stature and legendary prowess in the romanticized tales, transformed into something quite different when clad in full plate armor. He became a monument to human ingenuity and a walking, albeit rather slow-moving, testament to the limitations of medieval technology. The horse, his noble steed, became an integral and sometimes unwilling partner in this elaborate and often perilous dance of war. The relationship between horse and armored knight was one of intricate dependence, a partnership forged in the crucible of battle, fraught with potential for both glorious triumph and utterly undignified failure. Mounting a horse, a seemingly simple act for an unarmored individual, became a complex logistical operation for a knight encased in up to 100 pounds of metal. Forget the graceful leap from the ground. This required a carefully choreographed process, often necessitating the aid of one or more squires. First, the knight would require a sturdy mounting block, ideally something taller than an average man, to give him the necessary lift to swing a leg over the horse's back. Imagine the scene: a heavily armored knight, his movements slow and deliberate, painstakingly hoisting himself onto his steed, a symphony of clanking metal accompanying every labored movement. Once mounted, the challenge shifted to maintaining balance. The weight of the armor shifted the knight's center of gravity considerably, making him less agile and more prone to losing his balance. A sudden movement by the horse, a slight stumble on uneven ground, or even a gust of wind could prove disastrous, sending the knight tumbling unceremoniously to the ground. The process of dismounting was equally arduous, involving a slow, controlled descent, often with the aid of the ever-patient squires. This wasn't a graceful dismount. This was an orchestrated maneuver, demanding concentration and the assistance of others, a testament to the armor's limitations. The saddles themselves underwent a significant evolution to accommodate the demands of warfare in full plate. Early saddles were simple affairs, offering little in the way of support or security. However, the advent of plate armor necessitated a more robust design. The saddles became larger, more heavily padded, and equipped with a variety of straps and buckles to secure the knight firmly in place. These saddles were designed not just for comfort, a relative term given the circumstances, but for security, ensuring the knight wouldn't be easily dislodged during the chaos of battle. They were, in essence, specialized restraints that helped to secure the knight on his steed against the powerful jolts and movements of combat. Beyond the saddle, other equipment was essential for maintaining control. The reins, often reinforced with leather or metal to withstand the considerable stress, played a vital role in guiding the horse. But even with these adaptations, controlling a horse in full plate armor was a challenge, requiring exceptional skill and strength. The knight's hands and arms, already burdened by the weight of gauntlets and other armor components, had to exert significant force to steer and control their mounts. The added weight of the armor itself made the subtle cues used by less encumbered riders difficult to communicate. But what about stirrups? An essential feature of any saddle, the stirrup provided the rider with stability and control. Yet, even the stirrup became a subject of adaptation when dealing with plate armor. The stiff metal of the armor meant that the rider's legs could not move as freely as they would in lighter clothing. The solution was often a stirrup that was wider and more deeply set, providing a more stable foothold for the knight's armored legs. This adaptation offered some compensation for the reduced mobility caused by armor, but it still required considerable strength and skill to ride effectively. The horse itself became an extension of the knight's capabilities, a critical element in his effectiveness on the battlefield. A well-trained war horse, strong, agile, and responsive, was as vital to a knight's success as his armor and weaponry. These horses were highly prized, bred and trained for years to perform under immense pressure, accustomed to the sights and sounds of war, the weight of a fully armored knight, and the jostling of combat. Their training was as rigorous as the knight's, and their health and well-being were as crucial. A horse's capabilities directly impacted the knight's mobility, his ability to maneuver in battle, and ultimately his survivability. Consider the scenario of a knight participating in a large-scale battle. The clatter of hooves, the clash of steel, the cries of men, all contributed to a cacophony of sound and movement. The knight, already hampered by the restrictions of his armor, had to navigate this chaotic battlefield, relying on his horse's speed and agility to maneuver among other combatants, to avoid enemy attacks, and to deliver devastating blows with his lance or sword. A faltering horse or an unfortunate accident could spell disaster, leaving the knight stranded, vulnerable, and exposed to attack. The humorous side of this knight-horse partnership is often overlooked. Stories abound of knights having undignified encounters with their steeds. Imagine, for instance, Sir Reginald Strongforth, a knight renowned for his prowess, attempting a swift maneuver only to have his armor catch on his saddle, causing him to lose his balance and tumble unceremoniously to the ground, his heavy metal plating creating a resounding clang as he hit the earth. Or perhaps Sir Bartholomew the Brave, during a particularly spirited charge, finding himself unable to maintain his balance due to his armor's weight and sliding off his horse in a most undignified manner. These are not tales of heroic deeds. They are comedic mishaps that highlight the challenges faced by knights in full plate armor. One particular tale, recounted in a rather jovial manuscript I once discovered, though unfortunately I can't recall the exact source at present, depicts the misfortune of Sir Reginald Butterfield, a rather stout knight known as much for his love of feasting as for his courage. Sir Reginald, a man of ample proportions, decided to demonstrate his skill at jousting, a tournament display of equestrian prowess that involved two knights charging at each other on horseback to knock each other from the saddle. Clad in a suit of armor far too tight for his frame, he mounted his horse with great difficulty, his squires struggling mightily to help him into the saddle. As the joust commenced, Sir Reginald charged forward with considerable enthusiasm, but his momentum, compounded by the weight of his armor, proved too much for his already overtaxed horse. The horse, caught off guard by its rider's increased weight, stumbled, and Sir Reginald, along with most of his armor, promptly ended up in a heap on the ground, the sight prompting a roar of laughter from the onlookers, who, despite their appreciation for a good joust, found Sir Reginald's misfortune utterly hilarious. The horse and armor, then, formed a dynamic, occasionally precarious partnership on the medieval battlefield. It was a relationship that demanded strength, skill, and an abundance of patience, seasoned with a healthy dose of humor. The knight's ability to fight effectively was dependent not only on his armor and weaponry, but also on the skill and resilience of his horse. The stories of knights and their mounts, both triumph and mishaps, serve as a reminder that medieval warfare was a complex affair, full of both grandeur and the absurdly comical. The next time you see a romanticized depiction of a medieval knight, remember the challenges of managing a horse while encased in a suit of plate armor. The reality was likely considerably less glamorous, but undoubtedly far more entertaining. The limitations imposed by full plate armor profoundly impacted battlefield tactics. Forget the Hollywood image of knights charging effortlessly across the field. The reality was far more nuanced. A knight in full plate was a heavily armored, relatively slow moving target, a fact that dictated the very nature of medieval warfare. While the armor provided substantial protection against slashing and piercing weapons, it severely hampered mobility and agility. A knight's ability to quickly change direction, dodge an incoming blow, or even simply run away, a perfectly reasonable tactical option, was significantly reduced. This inherent limitation forced medieval commanders to develop strategies that compensated for the reduced speed and maneuverability of their armored forces. Consider the classic medieval battlefield, a vast, often muddy expanse littered with the corpses of men and horses. The armored knight, far from being a nimble warrior, became a slow, heavy hitter, his impact maximized through coordinated formations and powerful charges. The famous wedge formation, for example, relied on the sheer weight and momentum of armored knights to break enemy lines. It was a brutal, efficient, and surprisingly effective strategy, leveraging the knight's limited agility into a devastating offensive tactic. Imagine the sight: a solid wall of steel, a moving mountain of armored men, inexorably crushing the opposition under their weight. It wasn't exactly elegant, but it was certainly effective, at least against similarly armored opponents. The battlefield became a stage for a very different kind of dance than the nimble sword fights of popular imagination. It was a slow, deliberate ballet of destruction, a choreography of carefully planned movements and strategic formations. Individual duels were far less common than the grand, coordinated charges that defined medieval battles. Skilled commanders understood that the success of their armored knights depended not on individual prowess alone, but on the precise execution of a broader strategic plan. This strategic dance is markedly different from modern warfare. Modern soldiers, equipped with lighter, more maneuverable armor and weaponry, prioritize speed, adaptability, and stealth. The battlefield itself is transformed, with the emphasis on flexible, decentralized combat tactics. The stark contrast between the rigid, heavy formations of medieval knights and the highly mobile, technologically advanced warfare of the modern world highlights the significant evolution of military strategy. Modern weaponry, with its ability to strike from afar, has effectively negated the advantages of the knight's heavy armor. A modern sniper rifle can easily pierce medieval plate armor from a considerable distance, completely eliminating the armor's advantage. But let's not paint too bleak a picture of the medieval knight's tactical limitations. Their armor, while cumbersome, did provide significant advantages. The protection offered by full plate armor was undeniably superior to any other form of protection available during that period. This allowed knights to withstand attacks that would have been fatal to less protected soldiers. The psychological effect of facing a wall of armored knights was also considerable. It was enough to demoralize many foes and deter them from engaging in close combat. This psychological impact is a critical element often overlooked. The sheer sight of an army of knights, clad in gleaming plate armor, was awe-inspiring and intimidating, capable of striking fear into the hearts of their opponents. This fear itself could determine the outcome of a battle, a crucial advantage that shouldn't be underestimated. The weaponry wielded by knights further shaped battlefield tactics. The lance, a long, heavy spear, was ideally suited for the close quarters charges that characterized medieval battles. The lance's effectiveness relied heavily on the momentum gained during a charge. The weight of the knight and his horse combined to deliver devastating impact. However, once the lance was broken, and it frequently was, the knight's mobility severely hampered their ability to effectively wield a sword or other melee weapon. This is where the support troops played a crucial role. Archers, infantry, and other less heavily armored soldiers acted as supporting roles in the medieval battlefield, providing protection and support to the slower-moving knights. They assisted the knights by acting as a buffer, preventing enemy units from getting too close and overloading the knights before they could properly engage in close-quarters combat. Now, let's delve into a comical battle scenario to illustrate the pitfalls of fighting in full-plate armor. Imagine a pivotal moment in a siege battle. Sir Reginald the Reckless, renowned more for his impulsive nature than his tactical acumen, is leading a charge. He and his fellow knights thunder towards the enemy's gate, a wave of gleaming metal and ferocious intent. But disaster strikes. Sir Reginald, ever the showman, attempts a particularly flamboyant maneuver, intending to split the enemy formation with a daring, high-speed turn. However, during this maneuver, one of his meticulously crafted knee joints malfunctions. He's inadvertently jammed in place like a rusty clockwork toy. His gallant charge becomes an unceremonious halt, his movement frozen as his fellow knights ride past, leaving him, a gleaming steel sentinel, stuck in an absurdly undignified pose. His armor, designed to protect, now acts as a humiliating cage, leaving him vulnerable to jeers from the enemy and the exasperated sighs of his commander. The enemy, initially intimidated by the sight of the armored knights, are now seized by an unexpected wave of hilarity, taking a brief respite from the siege to enjoy the spectacle. Another knight, Sir Barnaby the Bold, in a separate skirmish, demonstrates another unfortunate event related to armor. During a sword fight with a less heavily armored opponent, Sir Barnaby's helmet slips just enough to completely obstruct his vision. This doesn't stop him. Instead, he continues to swing his sword wildly, a confused and rather dangerous figure. His inability to see his enemy adds an ironic and absurd twist to his efforts. He inadvertently fells a tree and nearly decapitates a loyal squire running to fetch him a new helmet. This adds further absurdity to the chaotic scene. It demonstrates how even the smallest malfunction of the equipment can disrupt tactical plans. These incidents, while comical, highlight the very real challenges faced by medieval knights. Their armor, a marvel of medieval engineering, was also a source of significant practical limitations. The interplay between armor's advantages and its drawbacks heavily influenced the tactical decisions made by medieval commanders. It highlights the need to appreciate the complex relationship between technology, strategy, and the unpredictable nature of combat. The medieval battlefield wasn't just a clash of swords and shields. It was a contest of wits, strategy, and occasionally utter hilarious misfortune. It was, in short, a spectacle of human ingenuity and fallibility, played out against the backdrop of clanging metal and the snorts of war horses. And that, my friends, is a story worth telling and retelling with a chuckle. The romantic image of the medieval knight, a shining paragon of chivalry and martial prowess, often overshadows the grim realities of armored combat. While the plate armor offered unparalleled protection against the weapons of the era, it also presented significant challenges in terms of casualties and their consequences. The sheer weight of the armor, often exceeding 100 pounds, took a considerable physical toll on the wearer, leading to exhaustion, muscle strain, and even long-term injuries. Imagine spending an entire day clad in something that weighs as much as a small pony. The physical burden alone was exhausting, let alone the exertion of combat. Consider the plight of Sir Reginald, our hapless hero from the previous scenario. While his stuck knee joint provided a moment of battlefield comedy, the consequences could have been far more serious. A jammed joint, especially under the stress of battle, could easily cause a dislocation or fracture. Without modern medical techniques, such an injury could mean days or weeks of agonizing pain, immobility, and potential infection, a slow and agonizing death in some cases. The removal of the armor itself, a process requiring the assistance of several squires, would have been excruciating. We can almost hear the pained groans and frustrated shouts echoing across the battlefield. And what of the treatment? Forget the sterile operating rooms and sophisticated medical equipment of modern medicine. Medieval battlefield medicine was rudimentary at best. A simple wound could easily become infected, leading to sepsis, gangrene, and death. Consider the difficulty of treating injuries while navigating the layers of plate armor. Removing the armor to access a wound was a delicate and time-consuming process. Medieval surgeons, often lacking adequate training, were armed with crude tools, limited knowledge of anatomy, and no effective anesthetics. The process of treatment often caused more pain than it healed. The heavy helmets, while imposing, also presented a unique set of challenges. Sir Barnaby's near-blind swordplay was not an isolated incident. The restricted vision, the limited neck mobility, and the crushing weight of these helmets made even simple actions difficult. The slightest miscalculation could result in serious injury to the knight or his comrades. Concussions were likely commonplace, and the psychological impact of prolonged confinement in such a claustrophobic and constricting environment can't be overlooked. Beyond the immediate physical traumas of battle, the long-term consequences of wearing armor and fighting were substantial. Repetitive stress injuries were practically inevitable. The constant pressure on joints, ligaments, and muscles led to chronic pain, arthritis, and limited mobility in later life. The lives of many knights were ultimately defined by the physical toll of their chosen profession, a price paid for the perceived glory and prestige. They were warriors of steel, yes, but also warriors who carried the weight of their armor, both literally and metaphorically, long after they had hung up their swords. Let us not forget the less glamorous aspects of battlefield casualties. The sheer weight of fallen knights made them incredibly difficult to move, adding an extra layer of difficulty to the already chaotic aftermath of battle. Imagine the scene: a field strewn with the bodies of fallen knights, each encased in hundreds of pounds of metal, a macabre landscape of broken bodies and mangled armor. Removing these knights from the field was a difficult and dangerous task, requiring considerable effort, strength, and coordination, often performed by exhausted soldiers. The logistical challenges of handling these fallen warriors were substantial and should not be understated. The psychological impact of witnessing such carnage, both on the knights and on their supporting troops, was profound. The constant threat of death, coupled with the gruesome sights and sounds of battle, inevitably led to psychological trauma. The horrors of war, largely hidden from view by the romanticized narrative, were just as real in the Middle Ages as they are today. The scars of war were not only physical, the mental and emotional wounds, often overlooked, were as profound and long-lasting. Even those fortunate enough to escape serious injury were often left with lasting physical impairments. A minor wound, seemingly insignificant at the time, could easily become infected in the unsanitary conditions of a medieval battlefield. Such infections could lead to chronic illness, lifelong disability, and often premature death. The lack of adequate medical care meant that many knights suffered unnecessarily from pain, infection, and disability. The consequences extended beyond the individual knights. A significant loss of life among the knightly class had profound effects on the structure of medieval society. Knights were not merely soldiers, they were often the leaders of their communities, the administrators of estates, and the upholders of their social order. Their deaths created power vacuums, political instability, and created cascading repercussions throughout the social fabric. Let's envision a particularly unfortunate scenario. Imagine a large-scale battle where the casualties amongst the knightly class were exceptionally high. The loss of so many experienced commanders and influential members of society led to a drastic weakening of the realm's military capabilities, its administration, and its social structure. The subsequent power struggles and lack of experienced leadership could easily lead to further conflicts, social unrest, and even invasion. The consequences could resonate for years, or even decades after the actual battles had ended. The economic ramifications were just as significant. Training and equipping a knight was an expensive undertaking. The loss of a knight represented not only a loss of life, but also a significant financial burden for their family, their lord, and the kingdom as a whole. The costs of replacing fallen knights, training new ones, and maintaining the war effort were substantial, leading to financial strain and potentially impacting the kingdom's prosperity. Beyond the immediate and obvious consequences of death and injury, there were also the subtle, long-term effects of combat and the wearing of armor. The cumulative psychological toll on the knights, witnessing repeated instances of violence and death, could lead to PTSD-like symptoms, affecting their family life, social interactions, and their ability to function within society. A knight's physical and mental health often suffered significantly due to prolonged engagement in warfare, the pressures of combat, and the long-term physical effects of wearing armor. Furthermore, the process of removing and replacing armor between battles could also introduce infections. The armor itself, often poorly cleaned and stored in unsanitary conditions, was a breeding ground for bacteria and other pathogens. Small cuts and abrasions sustained during combat could easily become infected while the armor was in place. This posed a continuous threat to the knight's health, increasing the likelihood of illness and death. The seemingly simple act of putting on and taking off armor became a dangerous dance with infection. So while the image of the medieval knight, resplendent in shining armor, might evoke a sense of romantic heroism, the reality was far more complex and far less glamorous. The price of armored combat was high, measured not just in terms of immediate casualties, but also in the long-term physical and psychological toll, the societal upheaval, and the vast economic burden. The battlefield wasn't just a clash of steel, it was a brutal crucible that tested the strength and resilience of the men and the very fabric of their society. And that, my friends, is a story worth pondering, with perhaps a slight shudder and a quiet chuckle. Chapter 3: Beyond the Battlefield, the Armor's Legacy. The romanticized image of the medieval knight, a shining paragon of chivalry clad in gleaming plate armor, persists powerfully in our collective imagination. This image, carefully cultivated over centuries through art, literature, and popular culture, often obscures the uncomfortable truth. Medieval armor was, to put it mildly, a right pain in the posterior, while providing unparalleled protection against the brutal weaponry of the age. It also presented a host of practical challenges that made even simple movements a Herculean effort. Let's delve into how this disparity between reality and perception is reflected in various artistic and cultural mediums. Consider, for instance, the countless depictions of knights in medieval and Renaissance paintings. Think of the iconic works of artists like Raphael or Albrecht Dürer, where knights are portrayed as statuesque figures, effortlessly graceful in their armor, often posed in heroic stances. These paintings, while undeniably masterpieces, present a highly stylized and idealized vision. The weight of the armor, the restricted movement, the sheer discomfort, these are conspicuously absent. The artists, focused on conveying a sense of majesty and power, understandably omitted the less glamorous details. They aimed for visual impact, not historical accuracy. The knights depicted often seem more like living sculptures than actual fighting men, capable of moving with remarkable ease, despite being encased in what was, in reality, an incredibly restrictive and heavy suit of metal. The same romanticized vision permeates literature. Sir Walter Scott's novels, for instance, while meticulous in their portrayal of historical settings and customs, often present knights as effortlessly maneuverable, heroic figures who effortlessly overcome any physical limitations imposed by their armor. The descriptions focus on the heroic exploits and the chivalrous deeds, not on the practical struggles of wearing and fighting in hundreds of pounds of metal. The reader is swept away by tales of daring adventures, not the sweaty, aching reality of a long day in battle. The transition to cinema further cemented this idealized vision. Early silent films, and even many later productions, depict knights moving with an agility and grace completely at odds with the reality of armored combat. In these portrayals, the knights are often portrayed as superhuman warriors, effortlessly wielding their swords, jousting with breathtaking skill, and seemingly unaffected by the immense weight and restrictive nature of their armor. The cinematic knight is a symbol of strength, power, and unyielding resolve, not a warrior weighed down by his own gear. The emphasis is on action, spectacle, and drama, not the messy, often tedious reality of medieval warfare. Modern popular culture, too, continues to perpetuate this myth. Video games, particularly those featuring medieval settings, often portray knights as nimble, highly mobile fighters, capable of incredible feats of strength and agility. The reality is, however, that the average knight would struggle to keep up with a particularly enthusiastic toddler wearing a full set of armor. The game designers, understandably, prioritize gameplay and enjoyment over historical accuracy. The focus is on providing an engaging and exciting gaming experience, not a historically accurate simulation of medieval combat. However, there have been some notable exceptions. Certain historical dramas and documentaries have made attempts to showcase the realities of wearing and fighting in medieval armor. These productions, while often still prioritizing dramatic effect, often include brief scenes or explanations that highlight the physical challenges faced by the knights. These attempts, though often limited in scope, are significant in their effort to provide a more balanced representation. They hint at the truth hidden beneath the idealized image, reminding the audience of the heavy weight, the restricted mobility, and the significant physical limitations that were part and parcel of medieval warfare. It's crucial to understand why this romanticized image persisted for so long. The image of the knight in shining armor was not merely a product of artistic license or cinematic flair. It was also a powerful symbol of chivalry, courage, and social status. The image served a purpose, reflecting idealized ideals of nobility and martial prowess. It helped to solidify notions of heroism and, by extension, the social order. The shining armor became a symbol of not only military might, but also a society's aspirational ideals. The discrepancies between this image and reality, therefore, become more than just a simple case of historical inaccuracy. They highlight the complex interplay between historical reality, artistic representation, and the power of cultural symbolism. The disparity between the idealized image of the medieval knight and the reality of armored combat has interesting implications for how we view historical periods. The romanticized image serves as a powerful reminder of the way history is often filtered and shaped by the perspectives and intentions of those who narrate it. The myth of the effortlessly agile knight is a testament to the enduring power of myth-making and the way that storytelling can shape our perception of the past. By acknowledging and analyzing the differences between the historical reality and its popular representations, we gain a deeper and more nuanced understanding not only of medieval warfare, but also of the way history itself is constructed and transmitted. So next time you see a knight depicted in a painting, a movie, or a video game, remember the reality. Remember the weight, the discomfort, the sheer physical struggle involved in simply wearing and moving in a suit of medieval armor. The image of the knight in shining armor is a captivating one, undoubtedly. However, remembering the limitations and practical challenges faced by these warriors adds another layer to our understanding of their lives and struggles creating a richer and more insightful appreciation of medieval history. It's a story of heroism, yes, but also of perseverance, physical endurance, and a healthy dose of pragmatism, not to mention a whole lot of squires doing the heavy lifting. And that, my friends, is a history lesson worth remembering. Now, having thoroughly dissected the absurdities of medieval plate armor, its weight, its limitations, its inherent impracticality, let's catapult ourselves forward through the centuries and witness the astonishing transformation of military technology. The transition from the cumbersome, restrictive world of the medieval knight to the sleek, technologically advanced weaponry and armor of modern warfare is a story of breathtaking innovation and ingenuity. It's a story of how humanity, ever striving for greater efficiency and lethality on the battlefield, relentlessly refined its approach to war. Imagine for a moment a medieval knight attempting to navigate a modern battlefield. Picture him, encased in his 100-pound suit of plate, trying to keep pace with a soldier equipped with lightweight body armor, advanced weaponry, and communications technology. The sheer incongruity is comical. He'd be a sitting duck, a slow-moving, easily targeted monument to a bygone era. His mobility, already severely hampered by his own armor, would be utterly eclipsed by the speed and agility of modern soldiers. His sword and shield, formidable weapons in their time, would be woefully inadequate against the firepower of modern rifles, machine guns, and grenades. The evolution from plate armor to modern military equipment is a testament to the relentless pursuit of better protection, enhanced mobility, and increased lethality. The development of firearms revolutionized warfare, rendering plate armor obsolete almost overnight. While plate offered excellent protection against swords, axes, and arrows, it provided virtually no defense against a musket ball. The piercing power of gunpowder shattered the knight's previously impenetrable defense, ushering in a new era of military technology. This shift wasn't immediate, of course. The transition was gradual, marked by various intermediate stages. Initially, plate armor was modified to incorporate designs that could better withstand the initial impact of firearms. Reinforcements, extra plating, and changes in the overall design were introduced, but these modifications were largely inadequate and short-lived. The fundamental limitations of plate armor were ultimately insurmountable in the face of ever-increasing firearm power. The sheer weight and restricted movement remained significant disadvantages. The development of lighter, more flexible forms of armor became a crucial focus. Leather armor, chainmail, and various forms of quilted protection began to supplement or even replace plate armor. These alternatives offered a far greater degree of mobility, although their protective capabilities were naturally diminished. The focus shifted from near total protection to a balance between protection and mobility. This marked a significant shift in military thinking, demonstrating a willingness to sacrifice some level of protection for increased agility and maneuverability. The rise of firearms spurred a parallel revolution in infantry tactics. The rigid formations of medieval warfare, where armored knights stood shoulder to shoulder, were rendered obsolete. The devastating power of firearms necessitated more flexible and fluid battlefield maneuvers, requiring soldiers to move quickly and efficiently, taking cover and utilizing terrain to their advantage. This, in turn, further emphasized the importance of lighter, more flexible armor. The 19th and 20th centuries witnessed an explosion of technological innovation in military equipment. New materials, such as steel alloys and eventually advanced composites, allowed for the creation of lighter, stronger, and more protective armor. The invention of the bulletproof vest, although initially rudimentary, was a momentous leap forward. This development, while initially offering only limited protection, represented a significant departure from traditional forms of body armor. It signaled the increasing sophistication of armor design and the understanding that protection and mobility needed to be balanced. The evolution of weaponry has been equally dramatic. From swords and lances to rifles, machine guns, and sophisticated guided missiles, the firepower available to soldiers has increased exponentially. The development of increasingly powerful and accurate weaponry has pushed armor design to new heights, demanding the creation of more sophisticated protective materials and technologies. The arms race between offensive and defensive technologies has been a driving force behind military innovation throughout history. The advent of modern materials science has played a crucial role in this transformation. Kevlar, a high-strength, lightweight material, revolutionized body armor. Kevlar vests are significantly lighter and more flexible than any previous form of body armor, providing superior protection against small arms fire while permitting a significantly greater range of movement. This material has found its way into many pieces of military equipment, enabling soldiers to move swiftly and efficiently while still enjoying a high level of protection. Modern military technology is not merely about better armor and weapons. It is also about improved communication, logistical support, and medical care. Soldiers are equipped with advanced communication systems that allow them to coordinate their actions with precision and efficiency. Logistical support systems ensure that troops have access to food, water, ammunition, and medical supplies in even the most remote and challenging environments. Advanced medical technology ensures that wounded soldiers receive prompt and effective treatment, maximizing their chances of survival. The contrast between the medieval knight and the modern soldier is stark. The knight, weighed down by his armor and limited by its restrictive nature, depended on a small cadre of support personnel, squires mainly, to help with even the most basic tasks. The modern soldier, by contrast, is a highly mobile, highly trained combatant, equipped with advanced weaponry, communication systems, and support systems that allow him or her to function effectively in the most demanding conditions. The modern soldier's ability to adapt, react, and perform is significantly enhanced compared to their medieval counterpart. This transition from plate armor to modern military equipment represents a triumph of human ingenuity and technological advancement. The history of military technology is a tapestry woven with threads of innovation, adaptation, and relentless improvement. The focus has shifted from simple protection to a complex interplay of protection, mobility, lethality, and support systems, reflecting the increasingly sophisticated and technologically advanced nature of modern warfare. And perhaps most importantly, it's a history punctuated by the constant striving for a better way to wage war, a somewhat oxymoronic concept, but one that fundamentally shapes the trajectory of military development. The story of military technology is not simply a linear progression from clumsy to sophisticated. It is a story of trial and error, of unexpected breakthroughs, and of ingenious adaptations to changing circumstances. It is a history filled with brilliant innovations, sometimes arising from sheer necessity, other times from the boundless human desire to achieve a tactical advantage over one's adversary. Each generation of soldiers, built on the experiences and knowledge of those who came before, learning from past successes and failures, pushing the boundaries of technology and strategy to create increasingly effective fighting forces. We've come a long way from the cumbersome, restrictive world of the medieval knight. The modern soldier, a testament to centuries of technological advancement, embodies a remarkable evolution in military preparedness and capacity. The journey from plate armor to modern body armor and weaponry is a story of remarkable human ingenuity and the ever-present quest for military supremacy. And it's a story, I suspect, that will continue to unfold, evolving at an ever-increasing pace for as long as humanity continues to engage in armed conflict. The only constant seems to be the continuous search for the next technological edge, the next iteration in the unending dance between offense and defense on the battlefield. The legacy of the armor is not just in the protection it provided, but also in the innovations it sparked, leading us down a path to the remarkably different technologies used on modern battlefields. But the story of medieval armor doesn't end on the battlefield. Its legacy extends far beyond the clash of steel, reaching into the very fabric of medieval society. For beyond its practical function as protection, armor served as a potent symbol of power, wealth, and social status. It was a walking, breathing testament to a knight's position within the hierarchical structure of the medieval world. Think of it as the ultimate status symbol, a mobile, exquisitely crafted billboard proclaiming the wearer's importance. The sheer cost of a suit of armor was enough to mark a knight's social standing. We're not talking about the price of a new car. We're talking about the equivalent of a small castle or perhaps a sizable village. The materials alone, high-quality steel, meticulously crafted and painstakingly assembled, were expensive. The process of crafting a suit of armor was incredibly labor-intensive, requiring the specialized skills of multiple artisans, blacksmiths, metalworkers, and often engravers and gilders, contributing to a final product that could take months, even years, to complete. This lengthy process and the specialized skills required drove the cost up exponentially. Only the wealthy, the nobility, the extremely wealthy merchants, or those in the highest echelons of the church could afford such extravagance. Owning a suit of armor wasn't simply a matter of protection. It was a public declaration of affluence and influence. Furthermore, the elaborate designs and embellishments on the armor itself further underscored the wearer's social position. A plain, functional suit of armor spoke volumes about a knight's practicality, perhaps hinting at a humble background or a soldier more focused on efficacy than ostentation. However, many suits went far beyond the bare necessities. The armor of high-ranking knights was often lavishly decorated, adorned with intricate engravings, inlaid with precious metals like gold and silver, and even embellished with colorful enamel work. These details weren't merely decorative, they were carefully chosen to reflect the knight's lineage, alliances, and achievements. Heraldic symbols, family crests, and that even personalized designs were incorporated into the armor, creating a unique and instantly recognizable identity for the wearer. Imagine, for instance, a knight participating in a tournament. The very sight of him, resplendent in his highly ornamented armor, immediately communicated his social standing. His armor wasn't just a suit of protection, it was a visual narrative, a walking biography of his lineage and accomplishments. Opponents would be intimidated not only by his martial prowess, but also by the sheer display of wealth and power his armor represented. The visual spectacle alone could be enough to sway the outcome of a contest, even before a single blow was struck. A beautifully crafted suit of armor was a weapon in itself, influencing perceptions and potentially determining the course of a battle or a tournament. And the artistry involved wasn't limited to embellishment. The armor itself could be a work of art. Consider the intricate forging and shaping of the plates, the precise articulation of the joints, the way the armor flowed around the body. The skill required to create such an object was immense. The blacksmiths were not just artisans, they were artists, masters of their craft, capable of transforming raw materials into objects of both beauty and protection. The armor was not merely a suit of metal, it was a testament to the skill and dedication of its creators. The display of armor extended beyond the battlefield and tournament grounds. Armories themselves became showcases of the owner's wealth and power. They weren't just functional storage spaces, they were carefully curated collections of armor intended to impress visitors and underline the owner's status. The display of armor served not only as a symbol of military might, but also as a visual reminder of the owner's power and influence within the community. The symbolic power of armor further extended into the realm of portraiture. Medieval paintings and tapestries often depict knights clad in their armor, highlighting their role as protectors of their realms and symbols of their lord's power. These images not only portrayed the reality of combat, but also served as potent symbols of power and status, contributing to the image and narrative of the knight's persona. The way the armor was depicted, its design, its level of ornamentation, subtly communicated the knight's position in society. Even after the knight's death, armor could continue to exert its symbolic power. The deceased knight's armor, often displayed in funerary effigies, served as a lasting tribute to his life and accomplishments. This armor served as a reminder of the knight's service and loyalty, further perpetuating the symbol of his status even in death. The effigy itself, a lifelike representation of the knight, served to reinforce his legacy. It was a public statement of his contribution to society. Beyond the high-ranking knights, even common soldiers prized armor, though their versions were far less ornate and expensive. The possession of even rudimentary armor signaled a level of social advancement within the military, indicating a certain level of skill, experience, or perhaps a small degree of wealth. A soldier's armor, while less flamboyant, could still display a level of personalization. A simple leather strap, a personalized shield, or a unique weapon repair could be enough to individualize the armor and project a particular identity within the group. The symbolic power of armor was deeply intertwined with the feudal system. A knight's armor served as a tangible representation of his loyalty to his lord and his obligations to serve in battle. The armor itself was often provided by the lord, further strengthening the bond between them. The knight, clad in the armor provided by his lord, was a walking embodiment of feudal allegiance, a symbol of the lord's power and influence. The decline of plate armor in the face of firearms didn't immediately diminish its symbolic importance. While its practical utility on the battlefield decreased, its value as a symbol of power and status persisted for some time. Antique suits of armor and their designs became treasured heirlooms and collections for powerful families, continuing their symbolic role beyond their original military function. In conclusion, the legacy of medieval armor extends far beyond its military applications. It's a story woven with threads of craftsmanship, artistry, social status, and political power. It was a silent testament to the technological advancements of its time, but also an extremely loud proclamation of the wearer's wealth and influence. The armor itself, whether simple or ornate, was more than just protection. It was a powerful symbol that shaped perceptions, influenced social dynamics, and left an enduring legacy on the medieval world and beyond. Its story is a fascinating blend of practicality and symbolism, making it a captivating subject for historical study, and indeed, for any lover of history and storytelling. But the story of medieval armor, far from ending with its last clang on the battlefield, continues to resonate through time, largely thanks to the dedicated efforts of preservationists and historians. These individuals, often possessing a passion bordering on obsession, have rescued these magnificent and often absurd relics from the ravages of time and neglect, allowing us to marvel at their intricate designs and appreciate the craftsmanship of their creators. Their work allows us to delve deeper into the lives of the men who wore them and to understand the societies that forged them. The preservation of medieval armor is a complex and meticulous process. Imagine the challenges: centuries of exposure to the elements, the corrosive effects of rust, the fragility of aging metal. These suits, once symbols of strength and invincibility, become vulnerable, delicate remnants of the past. Yet, through careful cleaning, restoration, and conservation techniques, these artifacts are painstakingly brought back to life, or at least to a semblance of their former glory. The first step often involves a thorough assessment of the armor's condition. Experts meticulously document every scratch, dent, and crack using specialized techniques such as X-rays and CT scans to reveal hidden damage. This detailed analysis informs the subsequent preservation and restoration plan, a delicate dance between preserving the original artifact and making it safe for display and study. Cleaning, a seemingly simple task, requires immense skill and patience. Rust removal, for example, is a complex process, often involving electrochemical methods that carefully lift the rust without damaging the underlying metal. The use of harsh chemicals is avoided, as these can cause further deterioration. It's a bit like performing delicate surgery on a centuries-old patient, requiring steady hands and expert knowledge. Think of it as a medieval makeover with a far greater emphasis on preservation than transformation. After cleaning, the armor might undergo stabilization, a process that strengthens the weakened metal and prevents further decay. This may involve consolidating fragile areas with specialized adhesives or using techniques to control corrosion. It's a constant battle against entropy, a tireless struggle to slow down the relentless march of time. The result, however, is the preservation of an invaluable piece of history. Once the armor is stable, the process of restoration might begin, though this is approached with considerable caution. The goal is not to create a perfect, brand new suit of armor, but to conserve as much of the original artifact as possible. Any replacements or repairs are meticulously documented, ensuring that the changes are distinguishable from the original work. The aim is to reveal the history, not to rewrite it. Every step of the way, archivists and historians maintain meticulous records, ensuring the authenticity and provenance of the artifact remain intact. These painstaking restoration efforts are not simply about preserving beautiful objects, they're about preserving a historical record. The armor itself becomes a primary source, offering a tangible link to the past. The wear and tear on a particular suit of armor, the battle scars, the subtle dents hinting at specific impacts, can reveal fascinating details about medieval warfare, providing insights that written records may fail to capture. This brings us to the study and research facilitated by the preservation of these artifacts. Researchers, through careful examination of the armor, can glean valuable information about the metallurgical techniques of the time, the evolution of armor design, and even the diet of the knights who wore it. Trace element analysis can sometimes reveal dietary habits. Think of the possibilities. Each scratch, each dent, each repair tells a story. A slight alterations in design might reveal an adaptation to a new style of combat, a subtle change in materials suggesting shifting economic pressures. The research opportunities are truly endless. The preservation and study of medieval armor are not confined to dusty archives and dimly lit laboratories. Museums and historical sites around the world actively showcase these artifacts, creating engaging exhibits that bring history to life. The Tower of London, for instance, boasts a remarkable collections of medieval armor, offering visitors a glimpse into the weaponry and defenses of bygone eras. The Metropolitan Museum of Art in New York, the Wallace Collection in London, and the Musée de l'Armée in Paris, to name but a few, house stunning collections that captivate audiences with their sheer artistry and historical significance. These exhibits often go beyond mere display, using interactive technologies, augmented reality, and captivating storytelling to immerse visitors in the medieval world. They might recreate the sounds and sights of a medieval battlefield, allowing visitors to experience the weight and feel of the armor, to truly understand the challenges faced by those who wore it. Imagine trying on a replica. The sheer weight alone would provide a new appreciation for the physical demands placed on medieval knights. The displays are also crucial in conveying the social and cultural context of medieval armor. They highlight its role as a symbol of status and power, showcasing the intricate decoration and personalization that reflected the wearer's social standing and achievements. Such exhibits don't simply show armor, they tell the stories of the individuals who wore it, bringing the past into a vibrant, accessible reality. The ongoing research into medieval armor continues to enrich our understanding of this fascinating period. Advanced imaging techniques, such as X-ray fluorescence spectroscopy, allow researchers to analyze the composition of the metal, providing insights into the sources of the materials and the manufacturing processes. These scientific methods complement traditional historical research, creating a more comprehensive and nuanced picture of the past. Furthermore, the study of medieval armor is not limited to academics and museum curators. It sparks the imagination of artisans and enthusiasts, leading to the creation of replicas and reconstructions. These endeavors provide invaluable learning opportunities, allowing craftspeople to hone their skills and providing further insights into the techniques used in medieval times. The recreation of these suits of armor offers a hands-on way to understand the challenges and skills involved in their creation. The legacy of medieval armor, therefore, is not simply a matter of preserving old metal. It is a continuous process of discovery, a fascinating interplay between meticulous preservation, rigorous scientific analysis, and engaging public displays. It is a story that continues to unfold, revealing new insights and deepening our appreciation for the ingenuity, artistry, and brutal realities of the medieval world. These suits of armor, far from being silent relics, speak volumes about the past, offering a tangible connection to a world that, despite its differences, still resonates with our own. They are a legacy that, thanks to careful preservation and ongoing study, will continue to inspire and inform for generations to come. And that, my friends, is a story worth telling. The enduring appeal of medieval armor extends far beyond its historical significance. It's a captivating blend of artistry, engineering, and a touch of the absurd that continues to fascinate us today. It's not just about rusty metal, it's about a glimpse into a world both familiar and utterly foreign, a world where brute force met painstaking craftsmanship, and where practicality often took a back seat to symbolism and intimidation. Consider the sheer weight of the thing, upwards of 100 pounds of metal encasing a knight, effectively turning him into a walking, slow-moving tank. The very impracticality of it is part of its charm. It's a testament to human ingenuity, but also to human folly. We're drawn to it, not just because of its historical value, but because it challenges our modern sensibilities and makes us question what it really meant to be a warrior in the medieval era. One key factor in its lasting appeal is its visual impact. Medieval armor, even in its dilapidated state, possesses an undeniable aesthetic power. The intricate detail, the gleaming, or at least once gleaming metal, the sculpted forms. These elements combine to create an aura of both power and elegance, a stark contrast to the often clumsy and impractical reality of wearing the thing. Think of the iconic images of knights in shining armor, often depicted in romanticized portrayals in literature, film, and art. This visual legacy contributes significantly to the enduring allure of the subject. These images, however idealized, tap into a deep-seated fascination with the past, a desire to connect with a time period marked by chivalry, warfare, and a strong sense of social hierarchy. The craftsmanship involved in creating medieval armor is another aspect that fuels its enduring popularity. Each piece was a work of art, meticulously crafted by skilled artisans who employed techniques passed down through generations. The intricate designs, the precision of the metalwork, the masterful joining of plates, these aspects demonstrate an incredible level of skill and dedication. It wasn't just about function, it was about creating a piece of wearable sculpture, a testament to the artisan's talent and the wearer's status. Even the seemingly simple task of riveting plates together required immense precision and patience. Imagine the hours, even days, spent perfecting a single piece of armor, the dedication to detail that went into creating a garment designed to withstand the brutal realities of medieval combat. This level of artistry speaks to a time when craftsmanship held immense value, a stark contrast to our often mass-produced, disposable world. Moreover, medieval armor offers a unique lens through which to examine medieval society. The armor wasn't simply a piece of protective gear, it was a powerful symbol of social status, military prowess, and personal identity. The quality of the armor, its decoration, and its style all reflected the wearer's wealth, social standing, and achievements. Elaborate engravings, personalized heraldry, and the use of precious metals were all ways of showcasing a knight's position within society. The very act of commissioning and wearing a suit of armor was a public declaration of power and prestige, a visual statement in a world where communication was often limited and visual cues carried significant weight. By studying the armor, we gain insights into the social structures, economic realities, and cultural norms of the medieval period. The enduring appeal of medieval armor is also amplified by its role in popular culture. From fantasy novels and video games to blockbuster films and historical documentaries, medieval knights in their armor remain iconic figures. The imagery is readily recognizable and instantly evokes a sense of history, adventure, and perhaps even a touch of the fantastical. It speaks to a deeper human fascination with the heroic, with tales of bravery and chivalry, even if those tales are often embellished or romanticized. This constant reinforcement in popular culture sustains the public's interest in the subject and ensures that medieval armor remains relevant and engaging for a wide audience. It is a powerful symbol that transcends its historical context, captivating audiences across generations. Beyond the obvious visual appeal and cultural impact, the scientific and technological aspects of medieval armor also contribute to its ongoing relevance. The metallurgical techniques employed by medieval armorers, the innovative designs, and the impressive engineering involved in creating such complex and functional, or at least intended to be functional, pieces of equipment are still studied today. Material scientists, historians, and engineers alike find inspiration in the medieval approach to material science and design. Techniques like quenching, tempering, and the precise joining of multiple metal plates represented advanced craftsmanship for their time and continue to intrigue modern experts who study not just the aesthetics, but also the applied physics and material properties involved. Furthermore, The ongoing process of discovering, restoring, and researching medieval armor continues to fuel public interest. Every newly unearthed piece, every painstakingly restored suit, adds to our understanding of the past. Each artifact tells a story, providing fresh insights into medieval warfare, craftsmanship, and social structures. The meticulous work of conservators and researchers ensures that these incredible relics are preserved for future generations to study and appreciate. This constant stream of new discoveries and ongoing research sustains a continuous level of interest in the topic. The discovery of a previously unknown suit, the uncovering of new details through advanced imaging techniques, the successful restoration of a particularly damaged piece. These events all serve to reinvigorate interest in the field and maintain the subject in the public eye. Finally, the appeal of medieval armor is amplified by the hands-on experience it offers. Many museums and historical sites allow visitors to examine and sometimes even handle replicas of medieval armor, providing a tangible connection to the past. The sheer weight and the feel of the metal create a visceral experience that enhances understanding and appreciation. This physical interaction significantly elevates the experience beyond the mere visual observation of a static display. The opportunity to don a replica, at least a lightweight one, and experience the limitations, even the slight discomfort, of medieval armor can provide a new level of insight into the challenges faced by medieval knights. The tangible nature of the armor, the weight, the rigidity, and the subtle design features bring the subject to life in a way that no photograph or description ever could. In conclusion, the enduring appeal of medieval armor is a multifaceted phenomenon. It's a testament to the artistry, engineering, and cultural significance of these remarkable artifacts. It is a subject that captivates the imagination, fuels research, and continues to resonate in modern popular culture. The fascinating blend of history, craftsmanship, and a touch of the absurd ensures that the legacy of medieval armor will continue to fascinate and inspire for generations to come. It is not merely a relic of the past, but a living bridge connecting us to a world both similar to and strikingly different from our own, a reminder of the enduring human fascination with history, power, and the enduring quest for protection, however impractical that protection may have been. Chapter 4: A Final Word on Ridiculousness and Resilience. But let's not linger solely on the ridiculous aspects of medieval military attire. After all, the knights themselves were not simply automatons encased in metal. They were men, and occasionally women, of flesh and blood, with their own personalities, quirks, and surprisingly, senses of humor. While their armor might have resembled a walking tin can, their lives were far more complex and nuanced than that image suggests. To fully appreciate the medieval knight, we must delve into the humanity beneath the steel. Imagine the scene: a knight, heavily armored, struggling to mount his horse. His squire, a young man likely barely old enough to shave, strains to lift his master's leg, his face contorted with exertion. The air is filled with grunts, curses, probably muttered in Latin or Old French depending on the location, and the clang of metal against metal. This wasn't some glorious, silent charge into battle. This was the mundane, often hilarious, reality of everyday life in a suit of plate armor. The weight alone must have been debilitating. Consider the sheer physical effort required to simply walk, let alone fight effectively. A knight in full plate would have moved with a distinctive, almost comical gait, a ponderous shuffle, a slow motion dance of steel, climbing stairs, a logistical nightmare, getting up after a fall, a potentially fatal ordeal, requiring the assistance of several strong men. Picture a joust gone wrong, a knight dismounted and sprawled on the ground, his armor trapping him like a metal sarcophagus, the crowd roaring with a mixture of amusement and pity. This wasn't some romanticized vision of chivalry. It was slapstick comedy played out in the age of chainmail. Yet, amid the clumsiness and the occasional physical comedy, there was a profound sense of camaraderie. Knights were, for better or worse, bound together by a shared experience. They understood the indignities, the frustrations, and the sheer physical exhaustion that came with their profession. Their humor was often born out of necessity, a way to cope with the absurdity of their situation and to forge bonds in the face of adversity. Think of the late night conversations in the castle, the shared stories of near misses and comical mishaps in battle, the jokes exchanged over tankards of ale after a particularly arduous day of being a walking metal fortress. They were warriors, yes, but they were also human beings, capable of shared laughter and a healthy dose of self-deprecation. And let's not forget the role of the squires. These young men were not merely servants. They were essential components of the knightly machine. They were the armorers, the horse handlers, the constant companions who endured the eccentricities of their armored masters. They were also the ones who bore witness to, and occasionally participated in, the countless indignities of medieval military life. Their intimate knowledge of the complexities of armor made them essential allies. Their laughter shared in times of need and struggle made them essential compatriots. The stories of medieval knights are filled with examples of remarkable resilience and adaptability. Despite the limitations of their armor, they managed to conquer kingdoms, win battles, and establish themselves as a dominant force in medieval Europe. Their success wasn't solely due to brute strength or superior weaponry. It was also a testament to their mental toughness, their unwavering determination, and their ability to overcome incredible physical challenges. They were, in a word, resourceful. Think about the ingenuity needed to solve simple problems, like relieving themselves while clad in steel, or how they managed to eat or even sleep in their armor. The very fact they even functioned as fighting units speaks volumes about the human capacity for resilience and finding the humor in the impossible. This resilience was tested not only on the battlefield, but also in the everyday realities of medieval life. Disease, injury, and the constant threat of violence were commonplace. Knights faced hardship that surpasses our modern comprehension. Yet, they persevered and often found ways to laugh in the face of adversity. Their humor was not a sign of weakness, but a testament to their ability to adapt to extraordinary circumstances. They found solace and companionship in shared laughter, forging strong bonds among their peers and comrades, and passing down not just the traditions of combat, but also the art of coping with its physical and psychological demands. However, it's crucial to remember the human cost of warfare. Even if the armor itself offered a certain degree of protection. The realities of medieval combat were brutal. Injuries were commonplace, and death was ever present. The physical and psychological trauma sustained by knights extended far beyond the battlefield, impacting their lives long after the clash of swords had ceased. The humor and camaraderie described above are important, but they shouldn't overshadow the grim realities of their existence. The armor protected them from swords, but not from the lasting scars of war. Physical, emotional, and psychological, the seemingly comical impracticality of medieval armor then serves as a potent reminder of the complex nature of human experience. It allows us to appreciate not only the ingenuity and artistry of the armor itself, but also the courage, resilience, and shared humanity of those who wore it. The laughter of the medieval knight, whether born of necessity, camaraderie, or simply a good joke, is a testament to the enduring human spirit, a spirit capable of finding humor and hope even amidst the most challenging circumstances. Their story isn't just one of heavy metal and brute force. It's a story of human resilience, adaptability, and the surprisingly enduring power of laughter in the face of death. The enduring legacy of the medieval knight isn't simply about the gleaming armor or the romanticized tales of chivalry or even the undeniable impracticality of it all. It's about the remarkable men and women who donned that armor, facing life's challenges with a blend of courage, resilience, and a surprisingly effective dose of humor. Their story is a reminder that even in the most demanding and often absurd situations, the human spirit can not only persevere, but find the strength to laugh, to connect, and to find beauty, even in the midst of what seems like utter chaos. It's a powerful lesson, clad in a suit of metal, and a testament to the enduring strength of the human heart. Consider, for instance, the chronicles of a particular knight, whose name is lost to the mists of time, but whose exploits and foibles were meticulously recorded by a contemporary chronicler. This knight, let's call him Sir Reginald for the sake of storytelling, was renowned for his courage in battle, his loyalty to his lord, and his remarkable ability to fall off his horse while fully armored naturally with an almost balletic grace. The chronicler recounts numerous occasions where Sir Reginald found himself unexpectedly dismounted, often leading to rather comical scenes of struggling knights and patiently assisting squires. Far from being a source of shame, these incidents only seemed to increase Sir Reginald's popularity amongst his peers, who were themselves all too familiar with the hazards of equine locomotion while encased in 100 pounds of metal. Another story speaks of a knight attempting to relieve himself whilst encased in full plate armor. The sheer awkwardness of the situation resulted in a series of loud and unfortunate noises echoing across the castle courtyard, much to the amusement of both his fellow knights and the resident peasantry. The incident, described in a gleeful tone by the local town clerk, became a legendary anecdote, illustrating the human element within the seemingly impenetrable exterior of the knight. This is perhaps the true legacy of the medieval knight, not some sanitized tale of unwavering perfection, but an understanding of their humanity. Their foibles were as much a part of their story as their courage and battlefield skill. The stories passed down through generations tell us not just of battles won and lost, but also of humorous incidents and close calls, of camaraderie forged in the face of adversity, and the surprisingly enduring strength of the human spirit to make light of the absurd. Medieval knights were not one-dimensional figures, and neither is their story. It's a tapestry woven from threads of courage, camaraderie, and yes, even a healthy dose of absurdity. The impractical armor might be the initial hook, but it is the humanity beneath, shining through even the heaviest of steel, that truly captivates us centuries later. It is a reminder that history is not just a collection of dates and battles, but a vast and vibrant human experience, full of the expected and the unexpected, the heroic and the humorous. And it is within these unexpected moments, where humanity shines through the most, that the true stories lie. It is in the laughter and companionship, amidst the clang and chaos, that the most poignant legacy is found. The laughter of the medieval knight echoes down through the centuries, a testament not only to their strength, but also to their humanity, a humanity that, through the lens of time and the occasional well-placed comedic anecdote, is made all the more endearing and unforgettable. But the story doesn't end with the individual knight's struggles and triumphs. The legacy of medieval military innovation extends far beyond the individual experience, impacting the very fabric of warfare and technological advancement for centuries to come. The seemingly impractical armor, with its inherent limitations, inadvertently spurred a cascade of innovations, a testament to human adaptability and the enduring drive to improve upon even the most seemingly perfect designs. Consider, for instance, the evolution of the saddle. Early saddles were rudimentary, offering little in the way of comfort or security for the heavily armored rider. The knight's precarious perch, coupled with the weight of his armor, frequently resulted in spectacular and often painful dismounts. This inherent instability fueled a demand for better saddles, leading to the development of more secure designs, featuring improved stirrups and better weight distribution. This seemingly minor advancement significantly enhanced a knight's stability and control in battle, dramatically increasing their effectiveness. The same principle applies to the design of the armor itself. The initial cumbersome designs, often resembling rigid metal shells, gradually evolved into more articulated and flexible systems. The transition from mail to plate armor, while initially increasing weight, eventually allowed for greater freedom of movement. This wasn't a sudden leap forward. It was a slow, iterative process, with each iteration building upon the successes and failures of its predecessors. Armorer after armorer tinkered, adjusted, and refined, driven by the constant need to balance protection with mobility. The development of sophisticated joints and hinges, allowing for greater range of motion, exemplifies this painstaking process of refinement. These improvements weren't simply aesthetic. They fundamentally altered the way knights fought, enabling greater agility and tactical flexibility on the battlefield. Think of the evolution of the helmet. Early helmets were often little more than simple metal bowls, offering minimal protection to the face and neck. Over time, however, these rudimentary designs evolved, incorporating visors, bevor plates, and eventually the full-face helmets seen in later periods. Again, this wasn't a linear progression, but rather a complex interplay of factors, with each design responding to the realities of combat and the limitations of existing technologies. The development of more sophisticated ventilation systems, designed to mitigate the stifling heat within the helmet, provides further testament to the constant drive to refine and improve upon existing designs. The very fact that knights didn't simply abandon armor, despite its limitations, points to a profound recognition of its ultimate value, despite its significant drawbacks. The medieval period, characterized by seemingly ridiculous armor, was in fact a crucible of military innovation. It was a period of experimentation, of trial and error, of constant adaptation to the ever-changing demands of warfare. The evolution of military technology wasn't a linear path of progress, but a messy, unpredictable process filled with setbacks, dead ends, and unexpected breakthroughs. The very impracticality of the initial armor designs forced advancements. The constant striving to improve upon existing designs, even those that seemed inherently flawed, is a testament to the human capacity for ingenuity and adaptability. Consider the ingenious ways knights devised to overcome the practical limitations of their armor. The development of specialized tools for donning and removing armor, the use of ingenious techniques for eating, drinking, and even relieving themselves while fully clad in metal, are but a few examples of this impressive problem-solving prowess. The legacy of this period extends far beyond the battlefield. The iterative process of designing and refining armor, coupled with the need for skilled armorers and blacksmiths, fueled technological advancements that impacted other aspects of medieval society. The development of new metallurgical techniques, the refinement of metalworking tools, and the fostering of specialized craftsmanship all contributed to a broader technological and economic development. These innovations weren't confined to the realm of weaponry. They permeated aspects of daily life, leading to improvements in agriculture, construction, and even art. The advancements made in metalworking, for instance, significantly improved the quality of tools and agricultural implements, boosting agricultural productivity and contributing to the overall economic prosperity of medieval society. Furthermore, the constant need to adapt to the changing dynamics of warfare forced innovations not only in equipment, but also in tactics and strategy. The limitations of the armor itself demanded a reconsideration of traditional battlefield strategies. The emphasis on combined arms tactics, the use of cavalry and infantry in coordinated maneuvers, the development of more sophisticated siege warfare techniques, all of these were in part a response to the constraints of the technology of the era. This highlights a crucial aspect of military innovation. It's not simply about improving weapons, but about adapting strategies and tactics to maximize their effectiveness. The clumsy gait of the armored knight, for instance, paradoxically led to new approaches to infantry formations and battlefield movements, a testament to the ingenuity of medieval military commanders. The legacy of medieval military innovation isn't solely confined to the Middle Ages. Its impact reverberates through subsequent centuries, shaping the development of military technology and warfare. The trial and error method, the constant striving for improvement, the iterative nature of technological advancement, all of these were hallmarks of medieval military innovation, lessons that continue to resonate in modern military thinking. The seemingly ridiculous armor of the medieval knight serves not only as a source of amusement, but also as a reminder of the enduring human capacity for ingenuity, adaptability, and relentless pursuit of improvement in the face of formidable challenges. It's a testament to the fact that even from seemingly impractical beginnings, significant progress can be made. Consider the modern equivalent of medieval armor, the body armor worn by soldiers today. While vastly different in material and design, the fundamental principles remain the same: protection, mobility, and the constant striving for improvement. The evolution of modern body armor, with its advancements in materials science, ergonomics, and ballistic protection, is a direct descendant of the centuries of trial and error that characterized the development of medieval armor. The lessons learned from the cumbersome suits of plate, the limitations of mail, the constant struggle to balance protection with mobility, all inform modern designs, ensuring that soldiers have the best possible protection without compromising their ability to move and fight effectively. The legacy of medieval military innovation, therefore, is not merely a historical curiosity, but a continuous thread woven throughout the history of warfare. It's a reminder of the importance of adaptation, the power of trial and error, and the enduring human capacity to overcome seemingly insurmountable challenges. It's a story not just of heavy metal and clumsy gates, but of innovation, resilience, and the surprisingly effective power of laughter in the face of adversity. The laughter of the medieval knight, echoing through the centuries, speaks volumes about the enduring human spirit, a spirit that can find humor and hope even in the most challenging circumstances. The knight's story is not one of perfection, but of persistent struggle, ingenuity, and the remarkable human ability to adapt, innovate, and sometimes laugh in the face of the absurd, a testament to the ongoing evolution of military technology and the enduring strength of the human heart. The lessons learned from the past continue to shape the present, reminding us that even the most seemingly ridiculous beginnings can pave the way for significant progress, and that the journey of innovation is often as important as the final destination. It's a journey filled with humor, hardship, and the unwavering human spirit. And that, my friends, is a story worth telling. Let's dispense with the Hollywood version of medieval warfare, shall we? Forget the effortlessly agile knights, shimmering in polished plate armor, effortlessly dispatching hordes of hapless foes with balletic grace. The reality, my friends, was considerably less glamorous and considerably funnier. The myth of the invincible knight, a paragon of martial skill and unwavering courage, is perhaps the most pervasive misconception. Popular culture often portrays knights as superhuman warriors, capable of single-handedly turning the tide of battle. This image, while undeniably exciting, bears little resemblance to the historical truth. Yes, knights were trained warriors, possessing considerable skills in horsemanship and swordsmanship, but even the most skilled knight was still a human being, susceptible to fatigue, injury, and yes, even fear. Their effectiveness was heavily dependent on factors beyond their individual prowess: the quality of their equipment, the training and skill of their fellow soldiers, and the overall strategy employed by their commanders. A knight clad in 60 pounds of steel wasn't exactly a gazelle. Think of it as a very expensive, very slow-moving, heavily armed human tortoise. Their movements were deliberate, their attacks calculated, a far cry from the whirlwind of flashing steel often depicted in film. And let's talk about that armor. Oh, that armor! The shining symbol of knightly power often conceals a truly uncomfortable and impractical reality. While offering protection, the armor was incredibly cumbersome, limiting mobility and severely restricting a knight's range of motion. Imagine trying to run a marathon in a suit of rigid metal. Not pretty, is it? Knights relied heavily on their squires, not only for battlefield support, but also for the mundane, yet crucial task of getting them into and out of their armor, a process that could take up to half an hour. The idea of a knight independently donning his armor with speed and efficiency is largely a product of fantasy. The weight alone was enough to cause fatigue, hampering their fighting ability, let alone the physical limitations. The armor's weight, combined with the heat generated within, would have led to significant discomfort and dehydration. Forget about quick maneuvers or surprise attacks. These heavily armored warriors moved at a decidedly measured pace. Moreover, the armor itself wasn't consistently effective. The design of the armor, while constantly evolving, was prone to flaws. Gaps in the plate armor, misaligned joints, and poorly fitted pieces left vulnerable spots. A well-aimed blow from a halberd, for instance, could still inflict serious injury despite the armor's protective qualities. The belief that medieval armor was impervious to all weapons is utterly false. It provided significant protection, to be sure, but not invincibility. It was more a case of mitigating damage than absolute protection. Furthermore, the effectiveness of armor greatly depended on factors such as the quality of the materials used in its construction, the skill of the armorer who crafted it, and the maintenance it received. The battles themselves were far from the romanticized clashes of heroic individuals portrayed in movies. They were often brutal, messy, and chaotic affairs, involving thousands of men fighting in a confused melee, with little room for individual heroism. The notion of an orderly, formalized battlefield where knights charge in perfect formations is a stark contrast to the actual experience. Battles were often characterized by fog of war, unexpected shifts in the fighting line, and a great deal of plain, old-fashioned mud. The ground was a treacherous mix of mud, blood, and discarded weapons, and the air was thick with dust, smoke, and the screams of the wounded. Knights frequently found themselves fighting not in glorious one-on-one duels, but in a chaotic scrum of men and horses, where the ability to keep your balance and swing your sword was as important as any tactical brilliance. The weaponry, too, often disappointed. The legendary Great Sword of Doom, frequently depicted in movies, was rarely used. It was simply too cumbersome. Most knights preferred smaller, more manageable weapons like swords, lances, and maces. The iconic, enormous swords, while visually impressive, were primarily ceremonial or used in specific circumstances, not the everyday battlefield tool. Their weight and size made them impractical for extended combat. The lance, a favored weapon of mounted knights, had a limited effective range and was easily broken or rendered useless in close combat. Many soldiers carried several weapons, transitioning between them as necessary. The concept of a single heroic weapon that determines the outcome of a battle simply doesn't align with the historical reality. Another persistent myth revolves around the knightly code and the chivalrous behavior of medieval knights. While notions of honor, loyalty, and courtesy existed, they were often overshadowed by brutal realities of warfare. Knights, like soldiers of any era, were capable of cruelty, treachery, and violence. The romanticized image of knights as honorable gentlemen, always respecting the rules of combat, is a significant simplification of a far more complex reality. The rules of war were not always followed, and battlefield conduct frequently strayed far from noble ideals. Indeed, the brutality and violence of medieval warfare is often underplayed. Furthermore, the role of infantry in medieval warfare is frequently underestimated. While knights were undoubtedly important components of medieval armies, they were not the sole fighting force. Infantry soldiers, such as footmen, archers, and pikemen, played crucial roles in battles, and their contributions were often decisive. The common image of knights as the primary protagonists of medieval warfare fails to acknowledge the essential contributions of these other soldiers. Their impact on military strategy and victory cannot be overstated. Medieval warfare was a complex interplay of different military units, with infantry and cavalry working together in coordinated maneuvers. Finally, let's not forget the logistical nightmares that plagued medieval armies. Supply lines were often unreliable, leading to food shortages and disease. The movement of large armies was slow and cumbersome, often hindered by weather conditions and the state of the roads. The romantic image of knights riding bravely into battle frequently overlooks the hardships they faced in the weeks or months leading up to an engagement. The battles themselves were often short and decisive. The logistical struggle was far longer and more significant. The health and well-being of the soldiers, knights included, were severely affected by conditions and availability of food and medicine. The idea that medieval warfare was a glorious and straightforward affair dramatically ignores the realities of battlefield logistics. In conclusion, the truth about medieval warfare is far more interesting, complex, and downright funnier than the often simplistic depictions found in popular culture. The clumsy knights, the impractical armor, the chaotic battles, and the unreliable logistics all contribute to a richer, more nuanced understanding of this fascinating period. The myths and misconceptions surrounding medieval warfare not only distort history, but rob us of the opportunity to appreciate the true ingenuity, resilience, and yes, even the absurdity of those who fought in the Middle Ages. It's a story filled with unexpected twists, surprising turns, and a great deal of laughter, precisely the elements that make history so delightfully engaging. So we've laughed at the ludicrousness of medieval armor, the impractical helmets, the restrictive plate, the sheer weight of it all. We've chuckled at the image of a knight struggling to mount his steed, a squire desperately tugging at a stuck gauntlet. But beneath the humor lies a deeper, more significant story. A story not just about ill-fitting metal, but about the evolution of technology, the limits of human ingenuity, and the enduring resilience of the human spirit. Consider the blacksmith, sweating over his forge, painstakingly shaping and fitting each piece of plate. He was a craftsman, an artist in metal, working with limited tools and techniques. His work was often breathtakingly intricate, a testament to his skill and dedication. Yet, Even his best efforts were constrained by the technology of his time. He couldn't conjure up lighter, stronger alloys. He lacked the precision engineering techniques that would later revolutionize weaponry and armor design. His limitations weren't a reflection of his incompetence, but rather the constraints of the technological landscape in which he operated. He was working with what he had, pushing the boundaries of the possible within the existing framework. The development of medieval armor wasn't a linear progression of ever-increasing effectiveness. It was a messy, iterative process characterized by trial and error, adaptation, and innovation. Think of it as a very long, very expensive game of technological whack-a-mole. A new weapon appears, a longer range bow, a more effective halberd, and the armorers scramble to adapt, reinforcing weak points, adding new layers of protection, refining the design to counter the new threat. It was a constant arms race, a relentless cycle of innovation and counter-innovation, a dance between offense and defense that spanned centuries. Each step forward in weaponry often necessitated a corresponding adaptation in armor, resulting in a complex and ever-evolving interplay of technological advancements. This back and forth wasn't just about the physical attributes of the armor. It was about the tactics and strategies employed in battle. The effectiveness of a suit of armor depended not only on its construction, but also on the way it was used. A knight who understood the limitations of his armor, who knew how to use his weight and positioning to his advantage, was far more effective than one who simply relied on brute force. It was a matter of understanding the interplay between technology, tactics, and training. Military prowess wasn't solely determined by the strength and resilience of one's armor, but also the fighter's adaptability, resilience, and strategic thinking. The evolution of armor also reflects the human drive to overcome adversity. Faced with the dangers of the battlefield, medieval soldiers developed ingenious ways to improve their protection, even within the confines of their technological limitations. The design of armor, in all its seemingly bizarre complexity, reflected the constant struggle to balance protection and mobility, a challenge that continues to this day. The evolution of military technology isn't just about technological advancement. It's about the human endeavor to survive and prevail, an ongoing quest to mitigate risk and enhance safety. We must remember, too, the human element within that heavy metal shell. The knight wasn't simply a walking suit of armor. He was a person with his own strengths, weaknesses, fears, and hopes. He was a product of his society, shaped by his culture and upbringing. He was a son, a husband, a father. He endured the discomfort, the heat, the limitations of his armor because it gave him a chance to survive another day, to protect his comrades, to fight for his king or lord. The armor, however impractical, was a symbol of hope, a tangible representation of his survival and his courage. It was more than just metal. It was a testament to his endurance and commitment. And it's here, in the personal experience of the knight, that we find the most profound lesson. The story of medieval armor isn't just about technology. It's about resilience, adaptability, and the human capacity to persevere, even when faced with seemingly insurmountable challenges. The knights weren't just warriors. They were pioneers, constantly pushing the boundaries of their equipment, adapting their tactics, and learning from their mistakes. The constant evolution of armor is a testament to human ingenuity, creativity, and a determination to overcome the limitations imposed by imperfect technology. This brings us to a crucial point: the importance of historical context. We cannot judge the technology of the past by the standards of the present. To laugh at the impracticality of medieval armor without understanding the technological limitations of the time is to miss the bigger picture. It's akin to judging a horse-drawn carriage by the standards of a modern Formula One car. Both served their purpose. Both represented the pinnacle of technology for their respective eras. Each was a product of its time, reflecting the knowledge, skills, and resources available to its creators. The lessons learned from the absurdities and limitations of medieval armor are strikingly relevant to our own time. Today, we face our own technological challenges, our own limitations. Our advancements in materials science, engineering, and computer technology seem almost limitless compared to the medieval period. Yet, even with our cutting-edge technology, we still face significant challenges. Consider the design of certain modern military vehicles, for instance. While they offer superior protection and firepower compared to medieval armor, they still have limitations in mobility, maintainability, and cost. The parallels are striking. The perpetual trade-off between protection, mobility, and cost, a balancing act that echoes through the centuries. Furthermore, our reliance on technology also mirrors the medieval reliance on squires and support systems. While the technology has changed dramatically, the necessity of support infrastructure and trained personnel to operate and maintain our advanced equipment remains a crucial factor. Modern warfare necessitates specialized teams of engineers, technicians, and logisticians, without whom the most advanced weapon systems would be useless. This reliance on intricate support networks, just like the medieval reliance on squires, highlights the intrinsic relationship between technology and human capabilities. The story of medieval armor, therefore, is not simply a humorous anecdote from the past. It's a potent reminder of the importance of understanding historical context, of appreciating the ingenuity and resilience of those who came before us, and of recognizing that even the most advanced technology has its limitations. It's a cautionary tale, reminding us that technological progress is not always a smooth, linear path, but a complex and often unpredictable journey filled with both triumphs and failures, successes and setbacks. The limitations of medieval armor, in all their comical absurdity, offer a valuable lesson in humility and a profound appreciation for the relentless pursuit of progress, a constant cycle of innovation and adaptation that continues to shape our world. And perhaps, most importantly, it reminds us that even the most ridiculous-looking inventions can hold the key to important discoveries and deeper understandings of human endeavor. The laughter, the irony, the sheer absurdity, it all points to a larger truth about the human experience, a truth that transcends time and technology itself. It's a testament to our unending quest for survival, protection, and yes, even a little bit of glory. So, there we have it. We've journeyed through centuries of clanging metal, pondered the physics of 100-pound suit of plate, and marveled, and maybe a little bit scoffed, at the ingenuity and the occasional sheer baffling absurdity of medieval armor design. We've seen knights struggling to mount their steeds, their faces obscured by visors designed more for intimidation than visibility, and their movements hampered by armor more suited to a statue than a warrior. We've laughed at the impracticality, we've admired the craftsmanship, and we've appreciated the sheer human grit that allowed men to fight, and often win, while encased in such cumbersome contraptions. Let's be clear, medieval armor was, by modern standards, utterly ridiculous. The helmets, often resembling oversized metal buckets, offered limited visibility and even less maneuverability. The plate armor, while offering protection against many weapons, severely restricted movement, turning nimble warriors into stiff, metallic figures, vulnerable to the unexpected trip, the cleverly placed spear thrust, or even simply the debilitating effects of heat exhaustion. The weight alone, often upwards of 100 pounds, was enough to sap a knight's strength before even a single blow was struck. Consider the logistical nightmare, the time and manpower required to don and doff the armor, not to mention the ever-present risk of getting stuck inside. The entire system was a testament to the importance of a dedicated squire, a skilled assistant who was arguably as vital to the knight's success as the armor itself. But to dismiss medieval armor solely as a parade of impracticality would be a grave injustice. It ignores the remarkable craftsmanship involved in its creation. Each piece was painstakingly forged and fitted, a testament to the skill and dedication of the blacksmiths and armorers of the time. The intricacy of the designs, often embellished with engravings and decorative elements, showcases a level of artistry rarely seen in modern military equipment. Each piece of armor represented countless hours of labor, a substantial investment in both time and resources. This was not simply a tool for war. It was a work of art, a symbol of status, a reflection of the wealth and power of its owner. Furthermore, judging medieval armor solely by its limitations ignores the historical context within which it was created. The armorers of the Middle Ages were working with the materials and technology available to them. They didn't have access to the lighter, stronger alloys or the precision engineering techniques that we take for granted today. They made the best they could with what they had, constantly adapting and refining their designs in response to changing warfare tactics and the development of new weapons. This constant evolution, this iterative process of trial and error, highlights the resourcefulness and ingenuity of medieval armorers. Their work reflects a constant attempt to balance protection and mobility, a challenge that continues to define military technology even today. The resilience of the men who wore this armor must also be acknowledged. To endure the physical strain, the heat, the claustrophobia, and the ever-present danger of battle, all while encased in up to 100 pounds of metal, required not only physical strength, but also immense mental fortitude. These were not simply warriors. They were incredibly resilient individuals, pushing their physical and mental limits in the pursuit of survival, honor, and glory. They understood the limitations of their equipment and compensated through strategic thinking, leveraging their weight and position to gain an advantage. thereby turning a significant disadvantage into a surprisingly effective tool. Think about that for a moment. A knight, weighing over 200 pounds in total, thanks to his armor and weaponry, charging into battle. The image is formidable, even terrifying, and yet, that immense weight, that restrictive armor, did not stop the knights of the Middle Ages from achieving remarkable feats of warfare. Their success wasn't despite their cumbersome armor, but in some ways, because of it. It forced them to develop a unique fighting style, one based on strength, positioning, and strategy. The armor itself became a tool of war, adding to their intimidation value, and in certain situations, providing an almost impenetrable defense. The humor, the absurdity, the sheer impracticality of medieval armor, all of it serves to highlight a more profound truth, the enduring human spirit. It's a story of ingenuity, adaptation, and perseverance, a testament to humanity's unwavering drive to overcome adversity. The knights, trapped within their metal shells, were still humans with hopes, fears, and dreams, not just mindless automatons. Their stories, both their triumphs and failures, are interwoven with the metal and leather, a testament to the human cost of conflict and the bravery it demanded. Consider the countless battles fought, the sieges endured, the victories and defeats that shaped the medieval world. In the midst of the chaos and carnage, the knights encased in their ridiculous, impractical armor played a crucial role. They were the front line, the shock troops, the bulwark against the enemy. Their armor, despite its limitations, allowed them to survive, to fight, and to contribute to the larger narrative of history. It is crucial that we remember this when we chuckle at the images of knights seemingly frozen in their metal suits. The armor is a symbol not only of a specific moment in time, but of human resilience, adaptability, and ingenuity. It speaks to the human desire for survival, the will to protect oneself, and the relentless pursuit of technological improvement. It is a reminder that even our most comical failures can inform our progress. And what's the final lesson we learn from our foray into the ridiculous world of medieval armor? Perhaps it is this, that progress is never neat or linear. It's a messy, iterative process filled with laughter, frustration, near misses, and occasional moments of unexpected brilliance. The armor's flaws are as important as its strengths, each contributing to the overall story of human evolution and our ongoing endeavor to improve and surpass our previous achievements. Let me leave you with this thought, one perhaps better suited for a tavern than a history lecture. Imagine a group of knights, finally disrobing after a long campaign. Their armor is discarded in a heap, each piece groaning a silent farewell to the battlefield. The knights themselves, tired, battered, but still alive, gather for a well-deserved meal. They share stories, jokes, and grudging admiration for the enemy. They laugh at the mishaps, the close calls, the times they nearly ended up trapped in their own armor. They toast their survival, not just as warriors, but as humans who persevered, adapted, and yes, occasionally stumbled through the absurdity of it all. This, perhaps more than anything else, encapsulates the enduring human spirit which lies at the heart of the story of medieval armor. The laughter, the camaraderie, the shared experience, that is the true legacy of the seemingly ridiculous metal suits. That's the end of our adventure into the clanging, clanking, sometimes comical, but always compelling world of medieval armor. Until next time, keep your visors up and your spirits high.